coming down to
Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
Oh, look at the toss! They haven't got it!
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly, Miller's still start trouble. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry!
And welcome to the Virtual World Sports Car Championship here from Road America. 60 minutes of racing here up tonight in what is an absolutely packed grid of Hypercars and GT3s ready to do battle in another round of this championship. Welcome along to the JPB YouTube channel once again as we're here with you for another World Sports Car Championship race. It's me, Ewan O'Leary, alongside James Parfitt for the evening, and we're looking forward to this one once again, James. It's very, very a busy entry, as we were just talking about before we came on air. Lots of people out here tonight, and lots of good racing to be had. It's going to be very, very action-packed over the course of the hour for absolutely everybody.
Yeah, with 44 cars on track as well. It's wondering whether or not they're going to split it into two servers, because otherwise, as you say, with this amount of cars at this track, it's going to be a bit manic. And with Hypercars in there and GT3s as well, it could get quite chaotic for everyone. So we'll have to keep a close eye out and see whether or not they're going to split into two servers and see what the situation will going to be, because if they run it with 44, it could be quite chaotic.
Could, and we'll see how that goes if indeed we do. There is the circuit we're on, of course. It's on America, and it indicates the orange zone that we have at the start of these races, just to make sure that everybody gets through the opening lap without too many major problems. We've got a fairly lengthy orange zone on this occasion, which goes all the way around to just after the kink. This is not a new revelation in series across the world of sim racing, James. We've seen them in lots of series before, but this one is rather long. I know that there's two big stops on the way in towards turn 1, of course, where you don't want everyone crashing into each other, and down in towards turn 5 as well, which is a really big pinch point where you could see people crashing into one another. However, that's not going to happen here because the orange zone goes round to the kink, which of course means no overtaking, no active overtaking, and any penalties, any attempts to do so, will result in double penalties. So any infringements from what they normally would be dished out as penalties will be doubled going forward. So that's basically what the orange zone means, and it's hopefully going to keep them in check for most of the first lap, as it turns out.
Hopefully, yeah, it should hopefully be able to, as you say, with the double penalties, I think they've just got to be careful. You know, it's going to be single file across the line and then they're open to race. But as you say, they've got to be careful if they do make any silly mistakes. The penalties are doubled going through that orange zone. They've got a long one. As we say, it's practically half the lap right the way round to the kink before they start kicking off here. So they've got to be careful. If they are going to make moves, they've got to basically try and make moves consistently. They've got to get through cleanly. Otherwise, it's double penalties for all of them.
This is the schedule we're on this season in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship. We're getting down towards the end of it now, 5 rounds to go. And this is very much the sprint race kind of part of the season. Most of the longer races, in fact, 3 out of the 5 happen in that first half of the season at Daytona, Sebring and Le Mans. We've still got Road Atlanta and Bahrain to do as longer rounds, and that will, of course, mean increased points, but it's mostly hour-long races, as we've seen in the last 3, even at Watkins Glen, actually. Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, Mosport, and Monza as well. Now we're at Road America. Still 5 rounds to go. That does, by the way, mean that with the amount of rounds we have to go, more than 100 points still available, which means that pretty much everybody is involved in pretty much all of the championship fights, which is exactly what we want at this time in the season. I mean, we talk about hour-long races, James, as not being particularly long in the scope of this season, because we've got 4.8 hours at Le Mans, of course, which was earlier on in the season. But it's still a relatively long time. With 2 times fuel burn, it's going to feel like a long time, because for these hypercars, they're going to have to make a couple of stops, possibly in the GT3s as well. A couple of stops needed to get them to the end of even this length of race.
Yeah, I think they are going to have to. You know, the GTs, maybe if they can drag it out to half an hour, they might only have to make 1. So we'll have to keep a close eye and see what the situation is. Obviously, depending on the GTs, you know, if they're up front and they're pushing, it's possible that they're going to have to make a splash and dash towards the end. If they're going to basically go and be sensible about it, they should only get away for 1. Hypercars, not so much. Every 20 minutes, we expect them to come in to the pits. You know, we spoke to Ross Smith before. He said about tyre wear being a bit of an issue here as well for the hypercars. So will they or won't they make 2 tyre stops? That we're just going to have to see and find out as we go along. So it's going to be a tough one, but you know, I think these drivers are more than skillful enough to be able to make this work. So hopefully for them, they should all get along nice and cleanly. But traffic management, as you can see here on the challenges, is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it is going to be a traffic jam. It's not very wide, this circuit, Road America, which poses most of the problems. I know that there are 2 long straights on the way towards Turn 1 and Turn 5, but traffic will be the key. The GT3s, as we were talking about before, have a little bit of a better time on the brakes around here. There's a big stop towards Turn 1 and Turn 5, as I was speaking about a little bit earlier on. And especially at Turn 5, it's a downhill run through there as well. And with the ABS that they have, the GT3s can actually brake a little bit later and a little bit more comfortably than the hypercars, who are coming from a higher speed, of course, in towards those turns. They have to start braking a little bit earlier. So that's something you have to be wary of in both classes. In the hypercars, not to cut back across the GT3s in the braking zone, because they could well end up running into the back of you through no fault of their own. And in the turn of the GT3s as well, not to brake too late if there's a particular concentration of hypercars right in front of you, and you're going to find yourself in the back of them quite quickly. And fuel saving, of course, as well, which is another one of the challenges. You briefly alluded to it there, James, but will it be a 1 stop? Will it be 2 in GT3? We're expecting a fairly usual 2-stop race in hypercar. Hearing from Ross Smith before the broadcast that the hypercars need about 1.5 tanks in terms of a fuel fill. Obviously, you can't put a whole 1.5 tanks worth of fuel into 1 tank at once. Even I can work that out. So it's going to be 2 stops over the course of the 60 minutes for them, whereas the GT3s we're not quite sure about. There's the tyre allocation that they get. No hards for the hypercars, of course, but everybody's got a wet allocation and no inters. They shouldn't be used today, though. The most likely part where it will rain here at Road America is actually the very start, which could pose some problems. But we were told earlier on that the chance is 5%, so I don't think any of these drivers were losing any sleep about that last night.
Yeah, I think they should be all right. I think that, you know, they're not going to have any major problems. I think they should be able to get away with just dry tyres. So it's going to be a good one, because, you know, me and you have been here, you know, hundreds of times. I've come out, broadcasted out of Road America, you know, and it's going to be interesting to see, because we know where the problems are going to be, right? We know where the issues are. Down into Turn 1, down into Turn 5. Get a run out of 5, you're going to be going up into 6. That's going to cause you a problem if you're going to go and try and go too wide. Carousel kink for the hypercars is going to be essential. They are going to have to allow for the GTs to drift out a little bit. Otherwise, they are going to be in trouble. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and it's going to be exciting as well. But, you know, what we can do now is have a look at the standings currently as they are before this race.
Yeah, still a long way to go, of course, but still very important to have a look at the standings going forward. Yuji Mazur is the leading LMGT3 AM driver, and this is the biggest margin that we have at the top of any standings. His 3 wins so far have given him 54 points of a championship lead over Stephen Miller and then Peter Meyer. We've got Mazur, Miller and Meyer in the top 3, which is fantastic. Mike Pierce is in 4th place ahead of Stuart Barge, and then Matt Buse in the 6th place. Adam Gray tied on points with him, with Filippo Marazari in 8th, Ed Jones and Josh Lepetri in the 10th position. And we've got Craig Pullen, by the way, in 12th place, another one of the race winners from the season, although that was a long time ago now, at Portimao, the first of these hour-long races. Unfortunately, Craig hasn't been with us since Long Beach, which was back in April, March kind of time, so unfortunately not seen him for quite some time. But there are LMGT3 AM standings, with on the right-hand side, Trash Panda Racing leading Reptile Racing, by the way, in the team's standings. In LMGT3 Pro, it's Acura at the top, and they're the only team really being represented. Jamie Zalecki is beating Vasilis Katarinakis by only 3 points. Brandon Gann only 8 points back as well, with JT Tami 10 points back. Becky Illy is in the 5th place, only 24 points away, with 1 win there as well. Johnny Gutierrez has got 2, and he's in 6th ahead of Sashin Sobers, who has just the 1. John Maher is in 8th ahead of Vinicius Gonçalves and Luciano Ichazo in the 10th place. Alessio Neto is in 13th, another one of our race winners in one of the few Bentleys that we have. You don't see very many of them very often anymore, but good to see Neto in one of those. That was also back at Portimao for Neto, which was also, incidentally, the last race that he took part in this World Sports Car Championship season, so not expected to see him in the future, unfortunately. Hypercar AM has a few more teams on the right hand side. We'll get to them in a moment, but Wayne Hutchison is the championship leader by only 17 points despite 4 wins. Felipe Henrique is in 2nd and of Guillaume Benck. Then it is Barry DiMarzo and William Miller rounding up the top 5. Miller, the first of the drivers to have not scored a win. Oliver Newman has a couple of them, with Maximilian Petrovsky in 7th. Louis Hesketh is in 8th ahead of Cohen Garland and Robert Strachan rounding out the top 10. In the only Ferrari in the Hypercar AM top 10, having taken a win earlier on in this season. We'll speak to Ross a little bit later on about how the Ferrari is doing around this particular circuit. And then we get to Hypercar itself. Daniel Kirby with a 49-point lead here, having taken 4 wins now in this season, the last of which coming at Mosport only a couple of rounds ago. Didn't have a great time at Monza, actually, but was 3 on the bounce up until that point to extend his lead over Tom Lane. Then it's John Uyen in the another one of the Peugeots, followed by Mia Rose, who won the second round of the season back at Sebring. Then we've got Timon Suvic in 5th of Magnus Dahlgren in the first of the Ferraris, followed by the first of the Acuras, Ross Smith, who we often hear from here on our broadcast this evening. A couple of the BMWs coming up next with Bradley Sellers and Walter de Bruyn in 8th and 9th, then Brian Hall in 10th position. In terms of other manufacturers down the order, there aren't too many different ones. There are actually no Toyotas in the pro side of the standings, but in Hypercar AM there is one Toyota. Nobody going for the Glickenhaus either, which is somewhat unsurprising, as much as James likes it. It's not particularly great, unless you're at Monza in real life. Anyway, in which case it's not a bad car at all. But there are your championship standings for now. And it's set up rather nicely as we move forward into qualifying, by the way. We'll start to get those times in pretty shortly. But I think we're set up quite nicely here, especially in Hypercar AM and especially in GT3. 5 drivers separated by 24 points. That means 5 drivers could take the championship lead tonight, which is fantastic news.
Yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. And we have got a lot of GT3 cars here as well, AMS and Pros, and a lot of the Hypercars in it once more. You know, as we say, we've got 43 cars on track at the moment. Welcome in, Ria. I hope you are well as well. Alec King, thanks so much for joining us. James, my American friend, he says, after being called American by Dan Peoples in a previous broadcast. Don't ask. I'm not quite sure how that even ended up, but there we go. But yeah, so qualifying is going to be important, I think, as well, especially for the Hypercars. They're going to want to try and get up onto that front row. You know, we know there's going to be a little bit of carnage. We know traffic's going to play a massive part. We know they've got to be careful and they've got to be sensible. But what we say and what happens on track, as we know, you and O'Leary, could be completely different things.
Yeah, certainly. Especially around here. I do have to ask now, by the way, how on earth did he make that mistake? Did he think you were from America or something? I don't know.
I have no idea, to be honest. All I know is during a broadcast, he mentioned that somehow come about that apparently I was American. He said something along the lines of, right, isn't it James, my American friend? What do we think? And I was like, American? Really, Dan? So yeah, it was an interesting one. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, that's what we can do.
To the rest of Europe, we are a little bit American, I suppose, in terms of how we behave. Anyway, that's another discussion point. Qualifying underway with GTs out there at the moment. The Hypercars will follow with 10 minutes to go. So 10 minutes each, of course, and we'll see who's where at the end of it. It should be just over the 2-minute mark here for the GT3s. Pole time should be in the 2:03s somewhere, or maybe 2:02s if someone's feeling a little bit quick. And we'll see if Sebastian Exposito is going to be one of those. Put in a good performance in practice there, which does tell you actually quite a lot about where he is in relation to everybody else. Was 4th in practice. And goes over the line to go to the top with a 2:04.2. I'll be surprised if that's pole, but then again, you don't actually have that much time to get up to speed here. So then again, it could be just a case of get out there, get the lap times that you can, and then come back in and see where it gets you, because practice is of course a very long session where you've got all the time in the world to get things right and make sure you set your best lap time, but qualifying is not like that at all.
No, I think there must be a problem here as well. The reason I say that is because Exposito at the moment is the only GT car on track. So I'm guessing there may be an issue somewhere along the line with the server. I'm just trying to get hold of Ross at the moment to see what the problem is, due to the fact that he's the only car on track. So at the moment, he's pole. So, yeah, bear with us on that one, and we'll see if there is an issue with the server. I know they were looking at trying to split it up, and I don't know if that's caused a problem for some of the drivers, but at the moment, for Exposito, he is the only one out on track.
Well, we have been hearing that the session will have to be restarted, so I don't think Exposito's doing anything outside of the rules, actually, by being out at the moment, but he's just not benefiting qualifying lap times. He's not going to, he's going to have to replicate that if any lap time that he does set, so unless he's being told to come back into pit lane, I don't actually think he's doing anything wrong, just not doing anything that's going to help him going forwards. A little bit of extra practice before the end of, or the start of actual qualifying. As you say, not sure what the actual problem is there, but we are restarting totally. We're not going to go through the entire hour 45 practice. Don't worry about that. But
I hope not. Otherwise, we're going to be here for a long time waffling on about quite a lot of nothing. So, yeah, let's hope that we fast forward into quali, shall we? Otherwise, there is going to be an issue.
Some would argue that we waffle on about not a lot.
Generally, we do.
Often.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Ewan? Let's be real. You know, we've been together for a while now, and we generally can, and we generally will waffle when we need to. But I don't know how good you are for the hour and 45. We have just advanced into quali, so hopefully we'll see a bit more GT3 action. Eugene Mazur's coming out. Becky Healy's also coming out. So hopefully, whatever the issue is, it's been resolved, and more people can get out on track. Unfortunately for Exposito, he had pole position for about a minute.
Yeah, and he was absolutely loving it, probably. But
Oh,
no,
absolutely.
he's come back in. Now the green light is shown at the end of pit lane, and this looks a bit more like a qualifying session, doesn't it? With everybody exiting the pit lane all at once. So this is looking a little bit more promising on this occasion, and we'll have qualifying underway properly now. So we're a little bit behind schedule, but that's all right. We'll get to enjoy the whole of qualifying now.
Rather than
by
just
the way-
watching Exposito go round, you mean?
Yeah, well, we could spend a bit of time watching him in a moment, but at least he's not on his own on this occasion. You got me thinking, by the way, about broadcasts I've done where I've been waffling on. Did used to do 24-hour races with about 12 cars that started and stuff. So it's that is prime waffling. Back in the day, that's
Back in the day, you make it sound like you're 50.
Well, back in the day, referring to about 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. So anything that was sort of before yesterday is sort of back in the day now.
No, I agree on that one.
Well, in my phrasing anyway. So there we go. Don't take too much notice of it. I'm not that old. Out onto the circuit then for the GT3s. Pretty much everybody has made their way out in terms of actual GT3s. I know that the Hypercars aren't allowed. We've got a few not out there, but so far I can only spot one, maybe two of the GT3s, well, literally one of the GT3s actually not having made their way out just for the moment. But it's going to be an important session. An hour-long race, of course, is plenty of time, but you don't want to spend much of your day stuck behind others, because Road America can be a bit of a frustrating place to be stuck behind someone else. You can spend a lot of time behind someone as well. So this session is going to be very important, and as I mentioned earlier, you don't get an awful long time to actually get out there and set your lap times properly.
No, and at 2 minutes a lap for the GTs, if not more, they're going to have to get out and get on and get going here. We can see Becky Healy just starting her lap as well. I love Mr. Reese's comment in YouTube there. He said, I thought back in the day was the 90s. Well, it was for me and probably for you, but I think Ewan was probably born in the 90s, so we can't really say that.
Not even old enough for that.
No, it's the 2000s, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's back in the day for my parents, I suppose, but that doesn't make you feel any better, does it?
God, blimey. No. A worrying thing when you're commentating with somebody who could be your son.
Yeah.
Gee whiz.
Well, yeah. I mean, at least I'm not Zach. That's an even more harrowing experience for you, I'd imagine.
Yes.
Because he's about 4 years younger than me. So there we go. But anyway, yes, I do mean back in the day, as in 2 or 3 years ago, and not quite that far ago. Qualifying flying laps, at least, are now beginning, and we're on board with Becky Healy at the moment, who's in 5th place in the standings. For what it's worth, it's just sort of random, but 5th place in the championship standings, which is a little bit more important, in one of those Acuras, and it's an Acura 1 and 2, by the way, with Jamie Zalecki and Vasilis Katarinakis at 1 and 2 at the moment. As I mentioned earlier on, though, everybody in that top 5, including Healy here, has the chance to take the championship lead at the end of the day, and that's going to give all 5 of them, a lot of motivation.
Yeah, when you're in touching distance, I think that's the thing. Whenever we talk about a championship, you can sit there, and we've seen it for a prime example in the SR10s we do on a Thursday. Last season, one of the drivers was a long way back. He just turned around and said, I'm going to go for it, win every race as much as I can. And he did, and he took the championship. And these drivers are in the same place. Zalecki, Katarinakis, Gant, JT Tammy, and Becky Healy. They're all in with a shot, and at the end of the day, with 25 points up for grabs as well, if not with a few more there as well. They've got an opportunity to take it. They've got an opportunity to win. They've got an opportunity to get close. And we've still got 5 rounds remaining. So it's not over for any of these drivers. Don't get me wrong. If they make a complete hash of this race, we're not saying by the time we get into the next one, it is going to be over. It could possibly well be. Zalecki might go and take the championship before we get to Fuji or Indianapolis or whatever. But for now, these guys have just got to work out what to do here as well. The GT3 class is always a difficult class. Now, that's normally because of the fact that you've got the Hypercars coming through, you've got the Hypercar AMs coming through, so they've got to look backwards and forwards and make sure that they can get it right. And it's going to be tough for them, but I think, the likes of Zielecki, the likes of Ely, the likes of all these more experienced drivers can probably manage that. And we've seen it with Becky Ely all season. She's been absolutely consistent in this one and obviously in the historic series. So I'm not expecting it to be a major problem for these drivers. I think these have all got experience as well. So I think they will be able to hang on, and you know, the likes of Ely, who we know can go and win a race here, Ewan, can probably go out and smash this one and quite easily take the win. She's just been so consistent all season that I think at the end of the day they're all in with an opportunity, and that's the way it's going to work. Go out, and what was it we heard there, Ewan, back from the Scotsman we both love and know? I'm going to just go for it until it's mathematically impossible, and these drivers have got to do the same.
Absolutely, and I don't think any of those top 5 will be actually thinking about that just yet, but about the opportunity that they do actually have, including Ely, who is currently top of the standings. She's never been on pole, by the way, this season in the World Sportscar Championship. Has always finished inside the top 5 in the 60-minute races after Portimao, where she didn't score any, but after that it's been up there. The only problem that she's really had is not quite nailing the longer races, and in the longer races there are more points available. You just get the feeling that that's probably held her back in the championship standings, because as I mentioned, it was a victory last time out at Monza for Ely, but not as many points available for that as there would be for a win at, for example, Sebring, or indeed the last 2 rounds of the season, where there are 38 points available for the win, or even, you know, the 44 for Daytona, or the 50 for Le Mans. You know, it's only 25 for these 60-minute races, so you just get the feeling that's maybe held her back a little bit in the point standings, but got every chance to rectify some of that margin today as we go back to Peter Meyer in the AM standings. He's 3rd in the championship, but way down in the session at the moment. Not sure quite, well, he's 11th overall. Not sure where that puts him in AMS actually, but he's running all right for the moment. There's another driver improved. I think that's Matthew Marlowe actually, who's just improved to 3rd place as of right now. It's pretty close, I think it's fair to say. 4 drivers separated by less than a second at the moment as this qualifying session draws to an end.
Yeah, I think these GT3s is going to be very, very competitive, and it's what we love and it's what we know. You know, we love being able to jump up and stand on our feet and scream like absolute lunatics at the end of the race when they're going over by a 10th. And this is, I don't think it's going to be the same. This, I don't think, you know, it's going to be any different. I think the likes of Ely, Takanashi, Marlowe, Exposito, Brown, you know, Monrose, Eugene Mazur in the AMS as well with Peter Meyer. You know, there's a lot going on with all of these guys. They've just got to make it to the point where they're out on track, they're consistent, and they're staying clean. That is going to be the one thing that these drivers have got to look out for. And unfortunately, as you saw in the background there, Takanashi just taking a diver off the side of the circuit there. But they've got to stay clean. The likes of Meyer, they've got to manage the traffic. They've got to stay in front of who they need to and pick their battles, Ewan. I think that's what they've got to do. If they don't need to be battling a hypercar and holding them up, just get out the way. Deal with it that way. Move on, you know. Pick your battles, because it's only the GT3s you're fighting. You don't want to be losing time to the hypercars if you're stuck there either.
Certainly not, and we'll see how that interaction goes a little bit later, because as we mentioned earlier, 44 drivers are on the grid here, which is pretty much the maximum that we can get in a server. Meyer goes over the line, remains 13th for now, and as you can see on the left hand side, by the way, 22 of them have set lap times for the moment, as some of the hypercars make their way towards the end of pit lane, because the time is about to expire for them, or begin for them, I should say, and expire for the GT3s in a couple of moments. That's what I meant to say. There's Exposito in 4th place, trying to break into that top 3, just under a second back. But Ishuki Takanashi right now, who's got probably the best chance of toppling Becky Ely for the moment. I'm not sure where Takanashi actually is. I think he's in the pit lane.
Yeah,
so that's going to be it for him and Marlowe as well. Oh no, Marlowe's coming around the final corner, so maybe this is the last chance to see our pole sitter displaced here as the time ticks down to 0. Matthew Marlowe goes over the line and I believe stays third.
Yeah, stays exactly where he is. The interesting thing now is Marlowe literally crossed over with barely seconds on the clock, so it's interesting whether or not he made it or whether or not he didn't. Obviously, if he did make it, it ain't going to be a problem. Go ahead and set your lap. If you didn't make it, you could be in trouble. So from Matthew Marlowe's point of view, he's got to be a little bit swish and a little bit careful here, because he may go out and take pole, and then obviously he may end up getting a penalty because he crossed over the line at that 10-minute mark. So we'll see what happens. Brown's finished, Monrose is finished, JT Tammy, Gant as well, so they're all back in the pits sitting there chilling out. You can see everybody else on the left hand side who is sitting there chilling, and we're just going to be waiting for the top, well, I want to say top class, but is it really, you know, the drivers? If you stuck the likes of Ely in a hypercar, would she be able to do the same thing? We know it's a different style of driving from a hypercar to a GT3. So, you know, it would be interesting to see Ely in a hypercar and see whether or not she can still set the same times like she has now up with the likes of Kirby and Dahlgren.
Yeah, it would, but as you say, it's a different style of driving that doesn't always translate so well. Know plenty of drivers who were very good in GT and touring cars, but who just could not extract the performance from high downforce cars, which is, of course, very different, but we don't know until you see it. I do believe Matthew Marlowe did make it, by the way. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like he did. He is making his way around the final couple of corners now. His first sector was actually pretty good, a 45-1, excuse me, and just inside the 42s in the middle sector as well. He's got a bit of a problem with the lap car there, overtaking him. I think that was that's not affected him. It's actually maybe giving him a little bit of slipstream as well on the run up towards the line. I think Marlowe is going to have this one count. Oh, and he's taken it right at the end. Matthew Marlowe, as long as he made it over the line there, which we think he did, then he has taken pole. It's a 2:03.3, and right at the end, Matthew Marlowe takes the pole position and the extra point that goes with it.
Yeah, stunning run there as well. It is going to be close though, whether or not he got there. It was literally just on that 10 minutes, so it's going to be see what the situation is. But I tell you what, that young man there did an absolutely stellar job from Matthew Marlowe, and he would be gutted if he ends up to losing that position due to the time infringement. But the hypercars are out on track now as well. We've got pretty much all of them here running, so we'll see how the hypercars get on once more, and whether or not they're going to be able to do the same. I believe we've got about 21 hypercars, if I'm not mistaken.
I think I saw 22 GT3s, so based on 44 divided by 22, which is 2, I think it's going to be 22 apiece, isn't it? Unless one of the GT3s didn't qualify. Oh yes, one of them didn't qualify, so you are correct. It's 21 hypercars. Shouldn't have doubted you there. 23 on the GT3s. That's across both classes, by the way, Pro and Am. We're currently looking at Daniel Kirby, the championship leader in the Pros. Now, there are 76 points available in the last 2 rounds on their own. That encompasses Bahrain and Road Atlanta. So with 3 60-minute races to go, where there's only 75 points available there, Kirby's actually got a pretty big job over the next 3 rounds to secure it before then. But all he can do tonight is just consolidate that margin. Don't lose too much to your main rivals, and that's got to be his aim for the evening.
Yeah, there's got to be 2 things that's going to happen now with Kirby. One is he's got to do a stellar job, right? We know that from the likes of Kirby. He's got to do a great job, a great run, and he's got to just basically keep the car on track. What he has also got to do, and everybody in the hypercars has got to do the same thing with the late braking on the GT3s and all of that, they've got to make them overtakes cleanly. We cannot express enough how dangerous it is when you get GT3s and hypercars on the same piece of track. There is going to be an issue, and they've got to manage it, and that's going to be the thing. It's managing that situation there as well. They're about 20 seconds quicker than the GT3s, so they've got to be very, very careful, and they've got to kind of manage that traffic. If they don't manage the traffic, the likes of Kirby, the likes of Dahlgren, all could find themselves in deep, deep trouble here, and possibly visiting one of the mighty many grass and gravel traps that we have around Road America.
It is not a wide circuit by any means, and with the amount of drivers they'll have to negotiate, it's going to be a difficult day for everybody. Don Huyen is in 4th at the moment in the standings, behind Brian Hall and Timon Suvek, who are currently preventing a 1 and 2 at the moment from the two Peugeots, CMS Pro, who are 124.5 points ahead of the Team Rookie Monsters team in the team standings. By the way, 7 teams in Hypercar Pro, which is the most of any category, and that team is currently on top. Kirby and Huyen, of course, collaborated, if you like, at the 4.8 Hours of Le Mans, the only round where that is permitted, that kind of car sharing is allowed. And they both took the win, they both took the full 50 points with them, and that's really helped them ahead of drivers like Tom Lane and Mia Rose, who drove separately, both of them in the Porsche, but they drove separately on that occasion. They lost points, and it's kind of helped them both in that championship charge there, because they kind of gained points on everybody. Tom Lane is in 5th place, by the way, with this opening lap and this opening session, and I believe that Mia Rose is actually not here today.
No.
Which is a shame to see for her, because she's going to lose quite considerable ground now in the championship, but considering she's only scored 10 points in the last 3 rounds, things were turning to look a little bit worse for her over the course of the last few rounds.
Yeah, Mia Rose... It was the thing with Mia Rose is she was always going to be quick, and we knew that. And quick is fine, right? Don't get me wrong. Craig there as well. Welcome in. Thank you so much for that. Good luck, all. Epic commentary, boys. Great to watch. Thank you so much for that. Mia Rose is quick. But the problem with Mia Rose that I found, and you know, I'm not being detrimental to Mia Rose here as well, is she reminds me of a Maverick, almost like that nickname you give to Tom Cruise in Top Gun, where, you know, 1 minute they're on point and they can be amazing, and then the next minute they're having accidents all over the place. And unfortunately for Mia Rose, she did get herself caught up with things as well at racetracks and got herself involved with stuff. And, you know, we've seen it as the season gone on. And it's a shame, because it's like anything, as you know, reputation follows, and it was a tough one for Mia Rose. You know, Spa, Le Mans, it was all rough, and I don't know, it's just a shame. It really is, because she was quick and she could be amazing, and you could see her go and pull away there, Ewan, but it's just, I don't know, that Maverick head kind of at times kicked in, and it just went a little bit wrong. And you know, it is a shame, but it kind of is what it is. You know, you look back, see where you've got to make changes, and think that was my fault, that wasn't my fault, you know, and go again. But it's a shame she's not here. You know, Daniel Kirby's sitting out in front with Brian Hall, who's in the pits at the moment as well. You know, Kirby, the only man in the 145s, I think, to be honest. Yeah, he's probably going to get pole already, to be honest.
I think you can park up now and just relax for a moment.
Go and,
be absolutely fine.
Yeah, go and get a cup of tea, whatever. You know, eat some jam sandwiches, whatever he's going to do.
Maybe to drink tea, because they don't need a wee during the race. But anyway, that's.
Well,
yeah,
if they can't hold it for 60 minutes, then they're clearly as old as I am.
Well, yeah, that's the problem I always have when I'm driving, actually. No matter what you do, you just feel like you need a wee all the time.
You say about us waffling on, and we're talking about your bathroom habits.
Sorry, yeah, I know. It's a common problem for sim racers. It's the thing. As Tom Lane makes his way towards the line, by the way, I think he'll improve here. He does to 4th place. John Egan gets moved down to fifth.
I'm sorry, that's tickled me. We talk about waffling on, and then we are talking about Ewan's Balfour. How did you cope the other day with the 70 laps of Daytona? Did you sit there with your legs crossed or something?
No, it was all right as far as I remember, but yeah, as you say, it's not a long race, is it? So it's absolutely fine, really. I'm slightly joking, really. Ross Smith on screens as well here. He's 9th for now in the qualifying session. He's 7th in the standings, by the way, the best placed of the Acuras. Teammates, of course, with George Angelidis in the HPD team. Interestingly, not the best placed Acura team. Timon Suvic and Alexander Schultz have done slightly better than them, but only slightly over the course of the season. They're kind of fighting for third in that team standings for the moment. Ross was saying to us earlier that he's not quite got this car down to quite where he wants it for the moment. I think he was talking earlier about the Porsche not being quite so fancied around this particular circuit, not the Acura, but nevertheless he did say that he'd been struggling to get to grips with it, and at the moment the best of the Acuras is only down it's in second place, isn't it, with Brian Hall and then Timon Suvic there, so clearly the Acura's not too bad, but maybe Ross just can't get to grips with it just for the moment.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Every car will drive in a different way. I do love Craig's commenting YouTube there as well, giving you a hint, Ewan, to help you out as well while you're driving. Yeah, every car drives differently, and Ross has been in the Acura, and it just you can go to the likes of Le Mans and the car will drive amazing. You go to Road America, which is a different entity, a different beast to Le Mans, and it just won't handle. You just literally feel like Bambi on ice. You can't get it turned in, you can't get the back end going round as well. We have come to the end of qualifying for the Hypercars as well. We will bring the grid up once we start getting into the pace lap as well. We'll give it a chance to settle down and get everything up to running, and we will bring up the grid there as well. But car-wise for Ross Smith, he's got what he's given. He's got what he's given, and he's got to try and handle it, and that's going to be the biggest thing for him.
Well, he's got what he's chosen in a way as well.
Yeah, you're stuck, isn't he? He can't do nothing with it now.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules are actually on car changing here. Whether you certainly can't do it without a penalty, I wouldn't imagine. But wonder whether you can at all. In some leagues, you are permitted to do it under the guise that you get a penalty. In this kind of series, you'd expect somewhere between 20 to 40 points maybe in terms of penalty for that. But I don't know what the rules are on car changing because quite frankly we haven't seen any of it or very little of it anyway from those at the front. Currently going into warm up and the briefing and all of that right now. So I think Ross is going to come and join us in a couple of moments to have a bit of a chat on how things are going generally, and we'll ask him about a few things to try and get some information out of him as well, which will have useful to us.
He's been a closed book as Ross. He won't give up anything. You know what I mean? He just won't give up anything. He sits there and he feeds little snippets. He's like the man who's running with the carrot away from the donkey, is Ross. And he keeps just dropping little bits of carrot all around, but he won't actually tell us anything about the 98 series and where we're actually heading for the historics. And he knows this as well. And he's probably sat in this chat listening to us with a slight little wry smile on his face, is old Ross Smith. But he is in the booth here, Ross, as well. So, Ross, come on, welcome in. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. I honestly didn't hear anything. I only heard cameras and donkeys, and I wasn't sure what I was getting into.
It's better than the conversation we had earlier about Ewan's toilet habits while he's driving. So, Ross, all in all, this will be good. The start of this race is a little bit chaotic because we were dealing with just server caps and everything. It was just a little bit of a sorting situation, but we got it going. Here we are.
Yes. Yes, here we are. Why don't you ask you first of all about your personal qualifying before we go a bit more broad on stuff. Ross, 9th place for you in that one. How was it generally? Was it sort of any different to practice? Any better? Have you you were telling us before that you weren't really happy with the car around here.
Yeah, it's better, but still not where I would feel comfortable with it. Obviously, my teammates are in different spots too. Felipe coming up past me, I really appreciated that. But he's very fast at the start, so I'd rather he be in front of me than just right behind, and us having issues there, because he'll pull away from me, and then we'll sort things out as we get into some of the different fueling stages. But yeah, I mean, these guys are just fast. Everyone up here, I'm really impressed with how much the Peugeots are able to hold speed through here. I mean, the Acuras are going to be strong. The Porsches, those guys are whipping them. They're going to struggle over the course of the race because they're not going to be able to push those tires the same way, and you're going to see them just really under threat on the straights. It's going to be tough for them. And the Ferraris, kind of a question mark. Magnus is fast, so I'm sure he'll definitely be a threat all up and down the field. And then the GTs, man, they're just the NSXs, as I mentioned kind of to you guys before. They're quick, they're rapid. You'll see them fly, and no idea about how the rest of them are going to perform, but they just better stay out of my way. No, that'll be good.
That's a bit of a warning, an ominous warning to everybody. Only joking, of course. Let's talk a little bit more broadly about the mod and how the season's going generally here. Ross, you mentioned a little bit about the cars specifically there. We've got a great mix-up towards the front once again. The Peugeot's still remaining strong from what they have done all season. The Acura's doing all right. Peugeot's, Ferrari and a Cadillac inside the top 10 as well. There's a great mix with this mod, and it continues to provide that sort of close racing that we've been having for a while now.
Yeah, you got it exactly. We're very proud of what we've been able to accomplish with the Smart BOP that we've employed here to give cars different strengths and weaknesses, and across stints in the whole seasons. We're obviously taking a lot of that data back. We're even talking about it now and how we're going to tweak some of the tires, looking at Hypercars coming out with colder tires basically for the first couple laps, maybe bringing the mediums in a bit more so they have a little bit more grip to them and maybe a little bit more fall off on the softs with the way that we run things. There's a lot of deliberation going on there. Nothing that's going to go into effect this year because people are pretty well established with where everyone is and how the cars perform. So this is really looking towards next year. And then obviously looking at the way that we're going to fine tune some of the compounds across the GTs. Those feel a lot more in line where they need to be. It's just small adjustments, and then bringing in more of those GT3s from the custom size as opposed to trying to crossbreed with what's happening on the Studio 397 side and everything they do with their tires. So it's a lot is happening in the background. Not a lot to show at the moment, but there's a ton of activity. We're even working on bringing some new guys in to help on some of the testing as we bring the 6 new cars in for the modern, and getting liveries and assets and all that in place. For this race here, the Acura was updated. I was hoping to have the 9X8 as well, but the ARX 06 is updated with a lot of features, a lot of graphical changes. It's looking great. Cameras are updated for it, so it should be in a really good position for you guys if you poke around there at all. And I'm hoping to do the same again for the Peugeot, and then round it out for the year for the other 2 active hypercars, being the Ferrari and the BMW, which aren't here today. I don't think. I'm a little sad about that.
Sorry, historic.
Yes, we do have a little bit more. Oh, there is one BMW. There is a little bit more movement there. We are probably going to make the decision to drop the multi-class component of it, limiting it from 9 to 5 cars. We will bring those cars back after the season goes through because we do have some really good development. I'm very proud of what the guys have been able to put together, but just sheer development time, and we're keeping an eye towards how we're going to be approaching this new season because there's a lot of variation in everything. There's a lot going on and so many moving parts that we want to try and keep things simplified. So it all just kind of adds up to a situation where we feel it's best to keep it tightly focused on a smaller subset of cars, and we know that it'll make for a much better package for everyone to enjoy in the short term.
Yeah.
So you want to ask James?
Do you know what? I could ask it, and he's never going to tell me. Where are we going?
No. So part of the the reason why I can't say very much, as much as I'd love to, is because George has a gag order on me. So he's very much tight-lipped. I even asked, I'm like, can we go ahead and bring out just some teasers, even, not even really giving anything away. And he's like, nope, no, we are not doing that. I want to have a big kaboom later on. So it's like, all right, George,
I love the impression of George. We've got Alec
Very
King.
emphatic.
Alec King's jumped to YouTube, and he said about bringing him in for a chat as well once we start mentioning the 98 series.
He's supposed to be in Miatas. What is he doing?
I don't know. Do you want to bring him in and have a chat with him? We've still got 10 minutes of warm-up there as well. Alec, can you hear us? Alec?
I don't.
No.
He's got to be on a.
I don't know.
He's supposed to be on a track in Miatas right now.
I don't know.
Oh,
ask
well,
him.
sadly, that was canceled, so I'm here enjoying the race with you guys.
Oh man.
See?
Yeah, yep. So I wanted to come in and see you guys, stop in the booth, say hi, and enjoy this first part of the race here with you guys.
And tell us all about the historic series.
I wish I had more info on it. They won't tell me anything either.
Oh, blah.
Yeah, I'm trying to claw it out of George and Ross, but they said I'm not at that level yet with our Storm Gang crew here. So they tell me just worry about the Cars livery boy, and that's basically where I'm at.
Well, I will say to that point, we are looking at having Alec be more involved on that front. So
Yes.
there you go.
Are you going to bring him into his pay grade then, where he can tell us more than you?
Well, even
No.
if he does get bumped up, there's still George who's gonna shove a gag in his mouth and tell him to shut up. So,
George tells me that every time I talk to him and ask for better BOP on the Porsches.
Oh, man.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. Look at Tom Lane; he's crushing it.
Oh yeah, no, Tom's been great.
And you won Thursday. You beat Kirby.
Oh, that was on a technicality, so
Uh-huh.
I won't count that all the way.
He didn't crash. Didn't have any problems.
Yes, but
I don't
now
know how
today
technicality.
with him in the Peugeot and he sets a 45.8, I go, I'm very glad I'm not on track today.
Why are you not on track, Alec?
I originally had a plan. I was gonna go. Been building a Spec Miata to go race the Spec Miata series here in the States, and we were supposed to go testing today, but sadly, due to some complications with the track and weather and some other things, I was unable to do so. So I wasn't planning on running today, and then I just got the news a little bit ago, and then by the time I realized it was too late to try and join into the server with everything, so figured I'd come stop here in the booth with you guys, have me a pint of Guinness, and enjoy some good racing.
Okay. Well, there you go. Well, Ross, we're still none the closer, guys. I've tried with him, you know what I mean? Next is only a crowbar and hold him down and pull his teeth or something. I don't know, to try and get something out of him. But, it's been an interesting season, hasn't it, really, Ross, with the mods and everything else. The improvements, as the graphical improvements as the season's gone on, has been really impressive. You guys have been working hard in the background.
Been working very hard. Yeah, I mean, we obviously there are a lot of things happening. Like as we're going through, we're trying to hit everything all at once. So like we're going just one car at a time and just pimping it out, making sure everything looks great, is set up right, and just hopping car to car. We'll get through the Hypercars this year. I'm going to try and hit the GTs as well, because there are some that are going to need some graphical love before we say aloha, and the mod releases to the workshop. And then next year the plan is to bring in a lot of Evo versions of some of the existing ones. So not much will change in terms of the physics that I know of. I mean, testing to be determined on that, but certainly graphically you're going to see some things just really up the ante. They're going to just be a lot better.
Right, okay. Well, we look forward to that one there, dear sir. Thank you so much for coming in and giving us absolutely no insight whatsoever on where the historics are going to go next season.
Happy to help.
You wait, I'm going to get
Some stuff is coming soon. I'll give you that. I'll say there's some stuff that will be coming soon.
Yeah, and closely followed
right.
by George with a baseball bat telling you to be quiet, probably. You know what
We'll
I mean?
figure it out.
Yeah,
All right,
sure.
I'm going to hop out.
Yeah, you take care, buddy. Have a good race, and hopefully we'll see you on the podium.
Yeah, well, it's a long shot, but yeah, if it happens, I'll be ecstatic. And it'll all be because of you guys and everything that you're doing here for the broadcast. We really appreciate it.
No worries, mate. It's been a pleasure. Take care, Ross. Have a good one, mate.
Yep. See you later.
See you later. Oh, I can't.
Thanks very much.
Well, there you go.
He sounds confident, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He sounds pretty good. Alec, are you staying with us, or are you going back to nestle down with your pint of Guinness and sit and watch the racing?
I'll stay with you guys here for a minute. Like to get in and watch these opening parts of the laps before I have to jump off of here. So track, I will say I ran the race here on Thursday, and so with more cars than what we ran on Thursday, and with how everything played out, this race is going to be very tricky, very scary. I will say that for the Hypercars and for the GTs, because some of the passes that you have to make to stay in tune with the track makes it pretty fun. So I'm going to stay in here with you guys for a little bit and see how these first little bit of the race plays out.
Well, it's going to be exciting here, Ewan, I think, as well. As we come in, about 7 minutes left of the warm-up here, mate. Before we go, start going back racing.
Yes, we'll be racing not long after that. But yeah, we can ask you about a few things, Alec, to be honest, because you've got way more experience in this combination than we have. We've never raced at all on this thing, and you did on Thursday, so it's very useful indeed to find out. In terms of what you saw traffic-wise, one of our challenges at the start of the race, I'm sure you're aware, was, or won't be surprised at least, that one of our big challenges of the day was the traffic that we highlighted before everything got underway. And what do you think that's going to be like based on what you saw a couple of days ago? Because I always associate Road America with being one of those circuits that you can host these big races with lots of cars on and high-level championships like they do in real life with this track, but it's always one of those that feels a little bit narrow, especially when you're multi-class racing. It doesn't feel like you've got the kind of space that you would have at like a Monza, for example, at the last round, or at Fuji, for example, which we have at the next round.
Yes, no, how this track plays out, it's very interesting. With how big the track is, you can fit a lot of cars in it just because of the length of the track, let me say that. But sheer size of how the racing line is and how things play out, it's very tricky, especially with the two types of categories of cars we have here with the Hypercars and the GTs. It makes it very tricky going into braking zones, especially like down after the main straight, down into the tight hairpin section. I don't know my corner numbers great, but the GT cars can outbrake all of the Hypercars. So you have Hypercars that try to dive in and to make a pass so they can make up time, and they just straight up get outbroke. So it makes it really hard to find where the spot to make the pass. Coming off the corner is one of the best parts for the Hypercars to kind of make it through the GT traffic. But it can be really tricky, especially on the opening part of the laps, where you get that train of, I think we have, 22 GT3 cars here today. You get that train of cars before everybody fans out through the pit cycle and everything. So that first, I want to say, within the first 10 laps, when the Hypercars will catch them, it makes it really hard because you have a train of Hypercars coming through trying to pass a train of GT3 cars, and it is just such a debacle and everything. So we had a couple of incidents on the Thursday night race, but whoever can manage that traffic the best will overall be in the best spot. Even the people who don't have the best pace, if you can manage the traffic the best, you can try and sneak out a win and, figure out what happened. That's what happened to me on Thursday with Daniel Kirby. I won that race by 1.5 seconds to Dan Kirby. So if you can manage the traffic the best and make sure you have the right strategy, you just really have to put yourself in a good position. Track position at this track is a big thing. So if you can get out front, you can manage through that traffic and try and hold somebody off.
You seem to be downplaying your win on Thursday, to be honest, Alex. I mean, Ross was saying earlier on that that was complimenting you for it, and you were downplaying it, and you're downplaying it again now. So I don't know.
So I'll say this. So
Okay.
when you get a win off of pure pace, that's one thing, and that's something to be exciting about, knowing that you were the fastest guy on the track that day. And Dan Kirby is one hell of a driver. He is one hell of a driver in the sim. And he had the pace on me all day. I was able to keep him honest, keep that gap in between 5 to 10 seconds. And then going on to the last stop, he decided to take tires, and I took the gamble and didn't take tires. So I got about a 15-second buffer with, I think, 17 or 16 minutes left in the race. and I was sweating because I saw that gap closing really fast, and I got really lucky with the last 2 laps. He hit a little bit of traffic, and I was able to scrape through for the win there at the end. But no, I mean, I was very excited. It was very cool to win. You know, I place second and third behind Daniel pretty much every time I get on the track just because of how good of a driver he is. So to squeak that one out, I was very excited, but I didn't want to play it up of, oh man, I did so great and did so well. So I have to give my props to him because he is flying. And especially today, I saw in qualifying he did a 45.8, and I think that is the fastest lap I've seen on this track with this car set. So I was nowhere close to that on my full qualifying pace on Thursday, so he's definitely got I have to give him his praise before I can accept mine.
You are correct, by the way. That is the fastest lap we've seen throughout the period of racing at Road America here. But yeah, I mean it's going to be a challenge for everybody else to try and beat him today. On that tyre debate, based on what you learned on Thursday, and based on what Kirby learned on Thursday as well, which could be important going forward towards later on. Just how important were those tyres? And I know you obviously came out on top in the end, but would you say that what's the best tyre strategy? Would you say in terms of actually in terms of pure race time and keeping your race time down and the fastest way round to do this? What would you say would be the correct tyre strategy in Hypercar, setting aside the battle itself at the end of Thursday night?
So I will go ahead and say that, and I don't want to sound cocky, but the strategy that we normally have that I played out on Thursday night is actually the strategy that pretty much most drivers will use. That's take tires your first stop, and then double stint your tires to the end, because your last stint will be a little over a half stint. If some guys will take tires for both stops like Daniel did last time, but I think he learned his lesson with that one, and I think today he will double stint the tires at the end. But it really plays out for track position. If where you're at on track will really dictate what you're going to do with tires. If you're in a tight battle and you need to get that track position on the guy behind you, yes, don't take tires and continue to go. But if you have a big gap and you need to try and catch somebody else and you're just that much faster, take the tires. Give yourself that pace. You're going to get through traffic easier. The corner that really made everyone struggle on Thursday was the carousel. When the tires get worn and the tires get late, you lose almost a second and a half through the carousel just because you're scrubbing the front tires the whole time. But I think the main strategy most of everyone will use today is they'll take tires for their first stint, and then that second stint, most of the guys up front will try and double stint just to try and get that track position.
Well, they're on the formation lap at the moment, and we're not far away from 60 minutes here at Road America. It will be Daniel Kirby on the front with Timon Suvic, Brian Hall and John Uyen joining him up there. 2 Acuras and 2 Peugeots inside the top 4. On row 3, it will be Tom Lane, who's just in front of some of the others. I can't quite read my screen for the moment, which is proven to be a problem. Yeah, now I can. Jerry Chen, Magnus Dahlgren and Philippe Henrique will be on the 4th row. Then it's Ross Smith and Norm Graf rounding out the rest of the top 10. Jason Whitsett and Wayne Hutchison, the AM Championship leader, is in 12th. Jules Lalonde is in 13th ahead of Michael Locke. And then Guillaume Benck is in the 15th place ahead of Eric Mounier in 16th. Anton Stalker is 17th ahead of Benjamin Porteous Heath. William Miller and Matthew Marlowe round at the top 20 overall. That is, of course, the GT3 pole for Marlowe. That was just ahead of Becky Ely, who is second, and of Yuki Takanashi. Then it is Sashin Sobers and Sebastian Exposito to round out row 12. Following on from that, in 26th is Chris Brown, then Jesse Montrose in 26th, ahead of JT Tami, and Yuji Mazur, the AM Championship leader, there in 28th. Then in the 29th position, we've got Mac Sumbatlap ahead of Jamie Zalecki. Brandon Gant is up there as well. The rest of it's cycling through. It's starting to go too quick for me down towards the bottom because my timing screen is not having a great time of things. But yes, there they are. The rest of them cycling through. Gonçalves is in there. Peter Meyer quite a long way back, as you will have just seen him go through. So are Matt Buse and Mike Buse. There they are, 38th, 39th overall. Quite a long way back in the GT3 AM standings, despite the fact they're up there in the championship. And there are the final few to round out what is going to be 43 cars by the looks of things to round things off. Just to bring you back in, James, here before the start of this race, we've got a huge grid heading forward towards this one. The hour is about to tick down. We're about to get the green flag as they head towards the line, of course. We're about to have a long orange zone, of course, but it's going to be an important start, especially for those pole sitters in those classes. Daniel Kirby especially, to try and bridge as much of a gap as possible to Timo Subic as he possibly can before he can really be overtaken at all.
Yeah, they're going to have to get, for Dan Kirby, he's going to have to try and get away here as best as physically possible, I think, to make sure he doesn't get caught up within that orange zone calamity and chaos that can happen, and we have seen it happen as well. So they've got to be a little bit careful here as well. Kirby's going to be settling in, his nerves are going to be kicking in as well. Little bit worrying that the leading GT3 at the moment in Matthew Marlowe has not really left a big gap between him and the last Hypercar. So that's going to be one to look out for as well, going down into turn one if there's an issue with the Hypercars. But at the moment here, Ewan, Kirby's on round the final corner.
Of course, is not yet in his control. He's got to wait up until way closer to the start finish line than this. And you'll see everybody try and close in as much as possible, because as I mentioned, Subic will want to stay close in that Acura. It's Peugeot, Acura, Acura, Peugeot inside the top four. Then one of the first of the Porsches, with Tom Lane up there inside the top five. The green flag waves here at Road America. 1 hour of racing set to get underway here in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship for 2023. And Daniel Kirby, after a record-breaking pole position lap, is already in the lead in the opening couple of corners. Looking down the inside already is John Uyen there. And there's bodywork flying, was that? Or was that one of the advertisement boards on the outside of the circuit? Not entirely sure, but it was not a good moment for Uyen there as he's looking to make a way through in towards turn 3. Matthew Marlowe gets us underway in GT3 with the sort of second start, if you like. Becky Healy stays very, very close indeed in second place. Then in third, it's Takanakis, followed by Sachin Sobers, who's in third there from the Mercedes. But what a surprisingly lively start there, James, at the front. John Uyen looking for positions in towards turn 3, despite the orange zone, which I wasn't expecting to see.
Yeah, well, I think as long as they do it cleanly and there's no incidents, they're good to overtake, as long as it is clean and they don't cause any problems. It's only if they cause any issues that the penalties get doubled, and that's the situation for them currently at the moment. But it is Kirby, he is leading the field here by nearly 2.5 seconds already. Kirby over Subic. It's just gone out to 3 seconds, and Suvic's got a bit of a mission at the moment as well, because he's got Brian Hall tucked up right behind him here, and it's going to be very interesting to see how Hall handles it. Down in the GT3s, obviously we've got Matthew Marlowe out in front. He's opened up a bit of a gap to Becky Ely. He's about 1.7 seconds at the moment. For Exposito, currently he's chasing down Takanashi, who is also trying to get away as well. There was a worrying moment for a brief minute there with Takanashi. He did come up as he was DQ'd there. Bits of carbon on the left hand side. Somebody's going to be putting it on eBay and making a fortune out of that one. But at the moment here, currently, we're all good. You know, everybody's away and up and running and everything's gravy.
I think Jules Lalonde was the only one to go off on that opening lap, and that was down at the bottom of the hill towards turn 8. That downhill braking zone before a rectangular 90 degree left-hander, and into the pit lane comes is that Takanashi? I think it is. Or is it Exposito? It's one of the BMWs.
Yeah, Exposito coming into the pit lane. I'm wondering if there was a penalty at the beginning as well. They did talk about that penalty coming out of the pit lane. There's also a Hypercar in there as well. So that is Ross Smith, Exposito. Gwilym Benk is another one who's also coming down pit lane at the same time. So Gwilym Benk's just come out right in the mix of the GT3s here, and this could be quite chaotic for them now as well. Beck's got to be a little bit careful. He's going to have to try and cycle through this traffic to get back on to Jason Whitehead, who of course is the last in the Hypercars. But it is going to be tough for these drivers now as well. The likes of Lalonde, the likes of Smith. I'm wondering if that all kicked off what Ross Smith was talking about as well when we were mentioning about the penalties at the beginning, and he said about coming out of the pit lane and could also cause you a problem as well. So yeah, for them it's going to be interesting to see here, Ewan, but at the moment for Gwilym Benk, he's got to try and battle his way through, but Kirby is just cruising out in front, and it's now on Jerry Chen, who's trying to get up to the back here. I believe that's Magnus Dahlgren in front of him.
Yes, Guillaume Benck had a drive-through penalty, by the way, outstanding from the Monza race. It was quite a complicated accident that I can't quite summarise for you very easily, but it was a 3-driver incident, and Benck was judged to be at fault. And then more simply, we did see an incident with Exposito at Monza as well, in towards the Della Roggia chicane, the second chicane, where Exposito broke too late, moving out to Chen, and got a drive-through penalty for that, as we're seeing coming back through the field again. This is Guillaume Benck, isn't it, trying to make his way back through the GT3s, because they are class positions, I suppose, or overall positions, I should say, in the race, and that was Brandon Gant there, in towards the kink. Benck was forcing it down the inside. Gant knows that these GT3s don't have the same downforce. It's difficult to go around the outside there, and they kind of had a meeting of desires, and they very nearly had a meeting of their 2 cars as well. Yeah, well, it'll be good to bring in Alec and get his opinion on that one. Do we think Benck's at fault for that, Alec, or not, or should it have been Gant giving him more room?
No, that is definitely Benck's fault there on that one. You just have to be really patient. Going through the kink like that, passing on the inside of a GT car at the kink isn't always the smartest decision. Because that could have ended very badly. Had he caught the grass a little bit more on the inside, it could have been day over for both of them. So this is definitely what we're seeing, though. We're seeing kind of a mini portion of it, of these hypercars having to come through the GT traffic. It's hard to make the spots. You really can only get it down the straightaway, so you have to set yourself up really good, but coming through the beginning and on the exit of the corner, to give yourself good position to overtake the GT cars as you're coming through. So we're seeing Guilherme here now just trying to get through the traffic, and he's battling with Gilles as they're trying to make their way through. So you have to be really patient. I said this before, and I'll say it again. It's okay to make a bold move, but it's not okay to be stupid. So just have to be patient, learn where they're going to put their car, where they're going to set up on the racing line, and just give yourself the best position to put your car ahead of them coming through the exit of the corner. It's really hard to overtake with the GT cars on corner entry because they can outbrake the hypercars very easily.
Got to learn that fine line, haven't you, between a bold move and a stupid one, because it's sometimes not so obvious in these types of races. Currently still looking at the top drivers in GT3 as we separate the classes for you on the left-hand side there. Matthew Marlowe now still leading ahead of Becky Ely. Then it's Sasha Sobers, who's now ahead of Yuki Takanashi. We're following now in the McLaren. You can just see, almost as sleek as a hypercar, isn't it, this GT3? Very, very aerodynamically shaped. I guess you could say unlike the Mercedes, which is a bit like trying to power a brick wall through the air on occasion. A bit of a box, but clearly not too bad in a straight line, especially not compared to some of the other manufacturers in GT3. We'll see what the exit is for Takanashi here, and whether he's going to have a moving towards turn 1. I think it's going to be too far back on this occasion, but Sober's clearly worried about it, weaving around a little bit on the home straight as we head down towards turn 1 here, James. It's going to be Sober staying in that position, but Takanashi applying a lot of pressure in second, or in fourth place, in second in this little group. Yeah,
Takanashi's going to have to try and get the exit out of turn 3 to get that run down through 4 and down into 5 here. He's definitely close enough, is Takanashi. He's definitely going to be sat there. You can see it here. Sobers is squeezing him. Takanashi's on the grass. He's being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, and Sobers is not playing nice there whatsoever. It's the last of the late breakers. It's going to be here as well. Sobers managed to hang on in what we have referred to as a bit of a house brick on wheels there over that sleek McLaren behind him. But for Takanashi there, yeah, I don't know if I'd be too impressed about the fact that Sobers nearly put you in the wall. I've got to be honest. I might be a little bit aggrieved, but, you know, as I've learned over this past couple of years, I need to at times stop talking. So I'm going to stop talking.
I mean, it's just a little bit of hard racing, isn't it, sometimes, and sometimes it's over the line. As we get into traffic now, by the way, Daniel Kirby has just caught the back end of the GT3 train as Takanashi looks up the inside of the kink. That's definitely not going to happen for him, but he's hounding at the Mercedes of Sasha Sobers for third now, running in the grass on the exit of the kink. There's Daniel Kirby. He's now in the traffic, Alec, and this is the moments you were talking about earlier on, the traffic jam that we were going to see, the challenge that we saw at the start of the day. We know it. Oh, it's going to be a problem. And Daniel Kirby, with a rare mistake, going wide at the carousel, has already come unstuck in that traffic we've been talking about all day long.
Yes, he just got a little bit impatient there, went a little wide, but luckily with the Peugeot has all-wheel drive, so he was able to get the car straightened out fairly easily and make the traffic. But as you see here, look at this, the GT cars battling in front of you. It's the opening laps of the race. They're battling for position, trying to get track position for themselves. With the Hypercars coming through, it's really tricky, like we just saw, to set yourself up good to try and make the pass through the corner. Daniel is smart. He'll get back composed, and I'm sure we'll see him carry out and pass them here soon and continue to grow his gap. But yes, as we see with the... Oh, it's so close right there with them going 3 wide. What we really need to pay attention to is the train of cars behind him. He's already established a gap, he's put himself forward, but with the Hypercars behind him that are all in their own little battles going on, fighting for position, as they come through trying to battle other GT3 cars that are there for having their own battle, can make it really tricky to fight of where you want to put your car on track. Like we said, Road America is not very wide at all. It's actually, for as long as it is, it's actually a fairly tight track with how the racing line plays out. So setting yourself up good to make that pass and put your car in the right position can be really, really tricky.
This is one of those battles that we're talking about. Magnus Dahlgren and Jerry Chen fighting for 4th place. We've also got Tom Lane, who's just overtaken Timon Suvic for 2nd as well, by the way. That was down the home straight. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure how he managed it, but there was side-by-side going on between 2 of the GT3s. And in the end, Lane was the first of the Hypercars to make his way out the other side of it. So I don't really know how he managed it, but he is in 2nd now in the Peugeot, ahead of the first of the Acuras, although it's a good run from Suvic on the run down towards turn 8 here. James, he's very nearly looking down the inside on that downhill run, but can't make his way through. Great start for Tom Lane, though, into 2nd.
Yeah, he made the most of the traffic situation, didn't he? And that's the thing, for Suvic's point of view, if he can get... Don't do that, don't go on the outside. The GTs are going to naturally wash that way anyway. And now all he's done is put himself under pressure again from Suvic here as well. Suvic's got to try and use that traffic. You know, if he could have got alongside Lane, he could have boxed Lane in behind the GT3s. And if I was a Hypercar, that was what... Oh, Lane there, a big old squirrely slide on. And that's what I'd be looking to do. You know, box you in next to that GT3. Look at getting a great run. Slow it down a little bit earlier, go round the last corner, lock it up, get going. Now use that GT3s that you've got a line. Unfortunately for Suvic, he didn't get close enough, but I would be looking at boxing Lane in here. I'd be like, well, you can go in there and I'm not letting you out. And for him, for Suvic now, this is that position that we talk about with drivers that Alec can probably refer to. He's trying to race the guy in front. So Tom Lane goes past the GT3, Suvic knows he has to get past him, which can lead into silly mistakes, stupid incidents that Suvic doesn't want to try and get involved with here as well. And he's trying to box him in, and he just cannot get alongside him here for Suvic. He's got to try and do something, but he cannot rush these moves, Alec, can he? Because otherwise, it's just going to lead to mistakes.
No, yeah, you have to be very patient. With them coming through the GT traffic, it's really difficult. If you try to make a late lunge, there could be a GT car right there, and you want to avoid that incident. So as we're seeing now with how you can tell it's playing out, Suvic is trying to make the pass on Tom Lane, but he just can't quite find the right pace. The right space. That Acura is very fast in a straight line. Oh, and as it gets very tight through there.
That's exactly what we were talking about. He
tried
to rush the move, didn't he? He knew he had to punish Lane through, and he didn't quite make it through, and it nearly ended up taking both of them out.
Yeah, you have to be very patient. As we can see, as it's already playing out, like we said, you have to try and make that pass fast, but it's really hard to find the right position to do it. However, this Acura is very slippy, that's a new word, in a straight line. As he just goes off track there a little bit, almost gets side by side. This Acura definitely has the top speed on the Porsche, so getting that slipstream can play into effect, but getting that slipstream and then pulling out of line can be really tricky, because with them coming through this GT traffic, there could be that GT car right there. Suvic, though, is doing very well. He's managing. He hasn't had an incident. I'm not trying to give him commentator's curse, but just being patient, letting the race play out. I'm sure here soon, once everyone fans out, he'll be able to close in that gap and try and make that pass on Tom Lane.
Great shot from inside the Acura here of Timon Suvic. Look how the detail in here, by the way, looks absolutely fantastic, with the steering wheel and the whatever you call that on the right hand side, a bank of buttons.
Yeah, button box. That'll do.
Button box that, well, I've got no idea what any of that means, but I'm sure he does if he needs it.
He's going to get
cycling through here. Everybody's just searching for slipstream, aren't they? And just into the grass slightly. Suvicki lifts off slightly on the way down towards turn 5. It's a tricky braking zone, as we mentioned, and he can't actually outbrake the GT3s, despite the fact you're in a faster class. That is one of the section where those cars with ABS will prevail. Through goes Tom Lane. Now just Suvic. Oh, a bit of a miscommunication between himself and one of the McLarens. I think it was it Takahashi?
Well, that was yes, that was Takanashi.
Yeah.
Yes, just in third place in the GT3s. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, Alec, with a miscommunication like that? You're always telling the slower car to stay on your line, but sometimes you really don't know where they're going to go.
No, it's very tricky because of the racing line is so different between the two cars. The GT3s have to use more of the track, where the Hypercars, with that downforce, they can kind of put the car wherever they want to. So trying to make that pass can be really tricky. You try to set your car up to put it more towards the outside, but you have to take into account that GT3 car is going to drift out wider. It doesn't have the point and shoot as those Hypercars do.
Oh!
That's the lead
Sorry.
GT3, Monroe.
Yeah, GT3 leader off the road just slightly there. Matthew Marlowe will be under a bit of pressure now from the Acura behind. Becky Ely, who's now closed in. And it's another point, I suppose. It doesn't actually only affect the Hypercars in terms of traffic, does it? It's GT3s that get affected massively by these traffic moments as well.
Yeah, Suvic there nearly causing a problem for Marlowe. I don't know if that's because Suvic dived up the inside of 13 and had a go there as well. But now for Marlowe, he's got Ely right behind him. He's got to try and not drive angry for Marlowe. He's got to now sit back and go, well, he did it. He's gone. That's fine. Let's get back in the race. And this is the hardest thing for a driver, is not to drive under the red, the red flag to a bull. He's got to now settle in, because Ely isn't a slouch. She's never been a slouch. She's not a little puppy that's going to get rolled over and her belly tickled either. She's going to come out. She's more of an Alsatian, and she's going to have a go at Marlowe. And for Marlowe now, he's going to have a tough job to hold on to Ely here, you. And I think that's the thing. As you can see, the Hypercars coming through. There's another situation there as well, of where a Hypercar diving up into turn 6. Not the best places to be doing it. Neither is there into 7. And what's worse is he had this little bit of a straight here where he could have just probably made that move a lot more easier. So Hypercar drivers, think about it. Think about what you're doing here as well, because at the moment for Marlowe, he's just gotten Banshee through on him, and he's just got to try and control that and try and open up that gap again to Becky Ely.
We've got problems in GT3 AM, by the way. The championship leader is in pit lane already after a crash at the final corner. Eugene Mazur has been off.
Yes, he has.
Down in pit lane now is the Ferrari. It was stopped there for a long time, by the way, at the final corner. He was there for absolutely ever, and finally got going again. I'm not sure how he's ended up there, although you could guess on traffic, couldn't you, I suppose? Oh, it was one of the Audis was off in front. He rejoins again, does Mazur, and just can't get it stopped. Oh dear, piles into the barrier there. I don't know what was going on at all, actually. Was going very quickly into the gravel and then the wall, but a big moment in the championship, because he is the GT3 AM leader by 56 points to Stephen Miller at the start of the day, but this could be a day where he ends up losing points, judging by this sight on pit lane at the moment.
Yeah, it's very bizarre there as well. Daniel Kirby's coming up to lap. That's Ross Smith in front of him. So Kirby has lapped basically the GTs, and he's now starting on the Hypercars here as well. 20 minutes we've seen. That's roughly round about where the pit stop welcome was going to be for the Hypercars. Whitehead has already come in, so he's already made his stop here. So you can see Smith there just allows Kirby to go through and get on his way. The Hypercars are quite spread out at the moment. There's second gaps and gaps appearing. Down in the GT3s though, Chris Brown and Sobers are still having a moment there as well. There was a debate whether or not Brown was going to be on track because of obviously the makeup of his livery and the situation, and he's obviously got it all sorted out, and he is here battling with Sash and Sobers. So Brown in that Porsche 911 has got that very, how can I put it, wide Mercedes in front of him.
Yeah. It's quite large in stature, and it will feel quite large in front of Chris Brown at the moment. Yes, it has. It did have problems in practice, but has clearly got everything all okay now. Looking good out there on the circuit in one of the darker blues and blacks, as you can just see the way that the GT3s use the road starting to affect those hypercars slightly. Got to have great knowledge of the other class when you're a hypercar driver. And there's a moment just up in front of Brown as well, as Sobers is just taking a trip through the grass on the outside of the kink there. Just gets reeled in on the way towards Canada corner as well. Brief filler flags going out everywhere at the moment, by the way, but nobody actually stopped on the circuit, so don't worry too much, as a third of the race now is already down here, Alec, and well, I don't know for sure, but you probably will. How much longer are we looking for until these hypercars come in? We've got quite a few of them in on pit lane as of right now.
Well, right now is definitely the pit window for the hypercars. So you're going to see all the guys who weren't fuel saving too much and who are coming in running that full power mixture are going to come in now. They're going to take they're definitely going to take fuel, and then they're also going to take tires. Unless someone else is trying to get that track position, they may try and double stint the tires for their second stint. I don't know how well that would be, though, as it would be a longer stint than the one at the end would be. So most of everyone now is coming in, taking fuel, taking tires, and then we'll see again in another 20 minutes them try to take fuel again. So now it's going to let everyone sort of spread out. The GT cars are going to start to fan out. Now the hypercars are also going to fan out with their different fuel strategies. So traffic will still be a factor. Oh, as we see a car go off track right there. I believe that may have been Magnus Dahlgren, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Looked like a Ferrari to me, so that could be the case, yes. I think he is the only Ferrari, isn't he? So I think that is Dahlgren who's made his way down to pit lane.
No, it was Whitehead.
Oh, Jason Whitehead.
Yeah, I think it was Whitehead who went off, and we're going to have another look and see if it was. I'm pretty sure it was Whitehead here.
He's already been in pit lane, so I wonder whether he tried to repair something, realised at this moment that actually it's not repaired at all, and has come down pit lane instead. I didn't think he was driving one of the Ferraris though, but clearly I am mistaken, and I am. Dahlgren is the other one, which did worry me slightly for the driver from fourth place, ever so briefly there. But it looks like he's gone now for Whitehead, and there he is down on pit lane. There's Daniel Kirby still out front, still doing his thing to quite convincing cloud cover at the moment, but only a very small chance of rain. In fact, we're very likely not to see it now. We've got past the start of the race, which was apparently the most likely point. Even that was only 5% though, and we should be absolutely fine to go to the end of the race without rain. Whether we get to the end of the season without it is another question, with circuits like Fuji coming up. That's often a washout in real life. Let's see what happens there when we go to that round next time out. Out of the final corner then for some of the GT3s, so we're expecting, James, to go a little bit longer here. The big question is, of course, can they make it to the half-an-hour mark or not?
Well, if they want to one-stop it, they're going to have to here as well, and they've got to try and drag it out as much as possible. You see a hypercar coming out of the pits there. They've got to be a bit more careful because these GTs are approaching them. This is Jaime Selecki and JT Tammy fighting it out here as well. You just see Selecki pushing there as well. Got onto the grass on the exit of turn 1, running down into 3, of course. We can count that, you know, it's not gone from 1 to 3. There is turn 2, but the Americans, as Alec can probably vouch for us, in their funky corner numbers, we've got a bit of an odd count going on. But, you know, Selecki here has just got to try and close on JT Tammy. He's got to try and make the most of the issues and the situation that he's been given. You know, for Selecki, he's doing quite a good job at the moment, you know, and he's just got to stay within touching distance of Tammy. Use him for fuel saving. You know, sit behind him, get some fuel there, get it all sorted out, because, you know, he's got to make another 6 minutes, which is only about 3 laps in these cars as well, Ewan. So they've got to be a little bit more sensible on where they're going to go with their pits.
Yes, we'll see who continues to come in here. I think Magnus Dahlgren's now the only one to have not pitted so far. You can see Tom Lane in with Kirby and Suvik and Brian Hall as well. I think other than that, Dahlgren is the only driver yet to make a pit stop in this race. Maybe that's not quite so true actually, but he's almost the only one. With 25 minutes gone in this race. Suvik seems to have made his way out already ahead of Tom Lane. Brian Hall and Daniel Kirby, who now is finally going. Will Kirby make it out ahead of Lane at least? I think he might well just about, yes, he will. But Timon Suvic here, Alec, has made a bit of a call. What would you say has put him into this second position at the moment, quite far ahead of Daniel Kirby?
Well, I can see that, so definitely what's played out now is, and this is what happened on the race on Thursday between Daniel and I, Suvic did not take tires, he only did fuel. So that's about 20 seconds or so just there. So as we look at the gap of where it's playing out, my assumption is that Suvic didn't take tires. He was trying to get that track position and trying to see if he can have the traffic help him try and pull that gap a little bit. Now, with that being said, when it comes to the next stop, he definitely will have to take tires. The tires will not last the whole rest part of the race. So with that strategy, it's good. It's going to give him the track position. He's going to get some clear air, but those tires are going to wear very fast, and he has a whole nother stint to try and manage those tires. If he tries to take tires at the end, it could play out. We'll have to see how traffic plays out, and if it costs Daniel any more mistakes and it loses any more time. But with that strategy, it's going to give him that position. So we'll have to see where it plays out, what pace he's going to have with those older tires, and see where it'll end up when it comes to 20 minutes later when they have to make their another pit stop.
It's a really interesting situation, and I'm very glad that we do have a bit of a difference between the two of them, as that was Chris Brown looking up the inside of Session Sobers just in the background there, and I thought there was going to be a bit of an incident in towards the kink. Now there's going to be a problem though. Oh, and there's cars everywhere. Hypercars looking to get through on the GT3s, and Chris Brown just lifting off it entirely and thinking, well, I don't really want to be involved in this, and neither does that Lamborghini, which has just gone entirely. That's one of the AM drivers. It was Matt Buse, who's actually up there in the AM Championship, and it's a pretty big day for them in terms of making up ground on Eugene Mazur, who's back out on the circuit again, but quite a long way down in the order as of right now. Incident down at turn 5, I think, for Norm Graff, who may have gone off down at turn 5. I think he's recovered again, and maybe just got things slightly wrong on the brakes, but other than that, they're okay. And oh, what a dive that is! Too much of a dive, you would say, James. Chris Brown got that all wrong, really.
Oh, didn't he just? He nearly put himself and Sobers into the shadow realm. It was almost see you later, both of you. I don't know if he just mistimed that braking point there as well. We can have a look back and see, but I think he just, yeah, I don't know. Let's have a look and see what he got up to.
Yeah, let's see. Down the, I mean, this is just lunacy almost, isn't it? It's a move down the inside. It's not a big braking zone down there at turn 1, and it very nearly results in a crash. I mean, Alec, as the driver, or most prolific driver of the three of us by quite some distance, what would you say to that kind of incident? I mean, for me, Brown has tried to make a move from quite a long way back at a corner where you're not actually braking very much at all.
Yes, no, he definitely tried to get that, try to be the last one on the brakes, tried to pull an old Danny Rick move, but, you know, he really needs to be patient, you know, trying to make that move early. Now look at the gap that he has to Sobers in front of him. That gap has extended almost a second or two. So being patient to set up your move, it cost him a lot of time. So now he's got to take a step back, try and reel him back in, and find a better spot to make the pass. These braking zones are really tricky to do it, and especially with him being in a Porsche. The Porsches in this game have a very weird ABS system. It kind of almost locks up the wheels whenever you do it. Oh, as we have a spin there, I believe that's Guilherme Benke in the Cadillac. Let's see what happened there.
He's already off. Bear with me. Here we go.
Oh, yeah, this is back to the... Oh, he's had 2 incidents in 1 lap by the looks of things. That's the carousel, which looks like a little bit of a weird spin. And then there's the last corner where he's trying to let drivers through and has spun as well. Well, I'm not entirely sure what's going on there, to be honest, Alec. It doesn't seem... tyres overheating, is that possible? I'm not really sure, but 2 spins in 1 lap is somewhat unusual.
Yes, with those tires spinning on the rear through the carousel, that definitely could have caused some problems with the tires overheating. It definitely is harder when you try to throttle up out of the corner. But I do believe with him coming into the pits, there may be some damage there, or he may have not taken tires on his first stop, and now they're just at the point where they're too worn and too hard for him to try and maintain and manage. As we cut back now to Daniel Kirby, he is reeling in Sachin Sobers. As we can see, that gap has already come down tremendously. Definitely taking tires on this first stop was the best call to make, as you can have the best grip through traffic. You can manage everything better and set yourself up better for the end of the race.
Look at this, 3.5 seconds now, closing to 3. Down the inside of one of the Cadillacs for Kirby.
And there was Monet, I believe. No, it wasn't Monet there either. It was one of the caddies, but can't remember which one it was. But yeah.
Willie Miller, maybe. He's just gone a lap down, I think, in the standings. Maybe Norm Graff. They're both a lap down in Cadillacs, which doesn't help as much. But still 16 cars on the lead lap, including George Angelidis as well, actually, by the way, because he had penalties earlier on in the race as a result of Monza, and he's in the top 10 again, which is quite impressive for him. Well, he's in the top 10 of the hypercar class, isn't he? He's not in the top 10 overall. He's 15th overall and barely clinging on to his lead lap status as things stand. There is Subic, in fact, right behind him, about to put him a lap down in another one of the Acuras, although it's going to have to wait a little bit longer. This is not ideal now, James, because not only has he got lapped GT3s, but also lapped hypercars, and Daniel Kirby's right there now.
Yeah, Suvic's going to be spitting bubbles there for Angelidis, I think, because Angelidis did have the opportunity to move over. Now, he gives me enough grief about the fact that blue flags are moving over and how they should do this and how they should do that, and the lead car should go wide and allow the car through and all that. Me, get out of the way. That's it. End of. Because all you've done now is put the leader right up into the hands of Dan Kirby. And he had a 3.5 second lead. And at the moment for George Angelidis here, well, he's probably sitting in his car thinking, I'm wondering what James is saying about me. Well, fairly easy here, sir. I'm not being rude. But can you please shift that car out of the way? Because this lead battle and Suvic, I doubt Suvic is going to be very impressed with this at all. And I know my blue flags are controversial, don't get me wrong. But at the moment, Angelidis, yeah, not doing a great job of managing this, I've got to be honest, and I think Alec there can probably agree.
Yeah, he's definitely swerving a little bit, trying to stay on the lead lap, but right now it's a lost cause for George. I'm sorry to say that, as you see Daniel come all the way through, but yeah, he just cost Suvic a whole position in a whole gap that he had ahead of Dan Kirby. As you can see now, he just doesn't. Now he's able to make the move around George, but George definitely should have let up the straightaway. He wasn't fighting. He's not in a position. It wasn't like he had another car in front of him that he was fighting with for position. He was just fighting to stay on the lead lap. And with this, we don't have cautions, so it's not like he can come back around with a caution and be grouped up with everybody. So when it comes to this, you definitely have to be a gentleman and give them that room if the leaders are coming by and you know they're close, as you can see it in your relative display. But it's definitely really tricky. He should have let him by, as now we see Suvic loses that position to Dan Kirby. And I think Suvic, with having those old tires, you're going to see Kirby put a gap on quick, as we can already see it's almost already 2 seconds. So definitely that strategy call from Suvic with not taking tires hasn't played out with him. As you can see, the car skating around. That rear end is definitely not as planted as what he wants it to be. And coming through this next corner into the carousel is really where it's going to be a struggle. But we have a really good battle here with Tom Lane and John Yuan.
Yeah, they got Ross Smith in front of him at the moment here, Ewan as well. So it's going to get very interesting here, I think, over the next lap of what these guys are going to do.
Yeah, still feeling pretty busy out there as the GT3s begin to trickle down pit lane for their stops. What they're hoping will be the only stops. They seem to have mostly made it longer than the half hour, so it may well be the only time they make it down pit lane, as Zuyan goes a little bit wide to try not to replicate the mistake of his teammate Dan Kirby, who went off at the carousel in the first time through traffic. He's making a brave dive at the kink though. Oh, it's gone wrong to the wall for one of the Mercedes. That is a disaster. Yeah, I thought it might have been Sachin Sobers, who was on the podium earlier on in the race. He's battling with Takanashi, if you remember, dropped to 4th, may have been dropping further, but this is a disaster for the Mercedes of Sachin Sobers. Well, what a shame for him, because through no fault of his own, he has been sent into the wall pretty comprehensively there, James.
Yeah, that was a definitive go and bully your way past. There's a lot of people going into the pits and out of the pits at the moment. I'm trying to find where Sobers has just gone off here as well, and unfortunately it's not giving me where he went off. We can see where he went off. He was involved with the John Ewan and Tom Lane situation as well. They had Ross Smith in the mix for good health as well. Smith's still in there as well, and he's still sitting in front of these two. You know, come on. I know your situations, you get it, you're a lap down, you don't want to be 2 laps, but please, boys, think logically what you're going to happen here as well. You know, you're off the pace, and at the moment that back marker in front is also not playing ball. He's gone in a little bit wide. That should allow Uyan and also Lane to go through, and he's let one, I believe, but he hasn't. Did he let the other? He did, and then all of a sudden has now miraculously disappeared. So I'm not too sure where that back marker went.
Into the shadow realm they go.
Yes, into the world of somewhere. So there you go. I'm not too sure who Sasha Sobers is out, Whitehead is out. I'm not too sure who that was, but wherever it was, yeah, poof, Harry Potter.
Well, not sure what's gone on there really, but there we are.
I don't know.
Yeah, don't know. Tom Lane still in 3rd place, with Tommy and still Johnny and still trying to make her way through. That was Canada corner, and another look to the outside there. We go on board with Lane in the Porsche, and well, I hope this is not Ian's actual view from driving, because to be honest with you, I can't see a whole lot from this if I was a driver anyway. I'm hoping he's a little bit more zoomed in than this, especially with the steering wheel and the hands that do get in your way, which is often a bit of a problem in prototypes and open wheelers, not being able to see where you're going while you're going around corners, which is quite important, really, as it turns out. I mean, there you go. You can't exactly see a lot when you're driving. Clearly, he's doing all right though, and Tom Lane is still keeping him behind. It's a later apex from Ian there. He'll have the slipstream, and Lane knows that he'll likely have a bit of defending to do down here at the final turn, or excuse me, the 5th turn of the circuit. And now the Peugeot slips to the outside, looking for that move on the brakes. It's going to be a long way. There's a bit of a slide from Ian there, and Lane's going to hold him out there for another corner, because the next one's a left-hander into turn 6. Another bit of late braking from Ian, who goes wide into the grass, and that slight bit of a mistake has cost him 3rd place.
Yeah, definitely. It was all done and dusted there as well. He had an opportunity. He tried to hang it around the outside of 5, around the outside of 6. He had a go, and then come a cropper coming out of that turn 7. And unfortunately for John Uyan, he's just got to kind of sit there and sit behind Tom Lane now and try and get him down that start-finish straight as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what Uyan does here, and whether or not he can kind of get past Lane. There's advertising hoardings going there. I'm not too sure who that was in that orange and white, but unfortunately whoever it was has just shot him out all over the place. I'm wondering if that wasn't William Miller as well, so I'm a bit surprised who that was, but whoever it was shot him across the side of the circuit.
Well, while that was going on, Lane got back through on Ian again, and nearly into the final corner it was reversed all over again. So it's quite exciting between the two of them now, with Lane still in front. Ross Smith just up in front of them as well. There's
Porteous
Heath in 5th there, and he's going to have a problem on his hands soon, because the two fighting for 3rd place are right behind here with just over a third of this race remaining. It's the 60 minutes of Road America here in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship for 2023. And Porteous Heath is going to get out the way now. Just pulls to the right-hand side. Gives them a little bit of slipstream, but not too much of it. Tom Lane would have liked a bit more, I think, because Johnny Ian is almost on the outside of him in exactly the same position that he was 1 lap ago. It will have to be late on the brakes again from the Peugeot. It's too late once again. It's almost like watching an exact replay. They're still side by side on the way towards turn 6. Can Ian get it right at this corner though? On this occasion, not quite. not due to his own mistake on this occasion, but due to the driving of Tom Lane, which has kept him in third place.
Yeah, Porteous Heath going round in the background there as well. Too many beans, I think, on that right foot, and unfortunately for him, he's spun it up. You know, Tom Lane and John Huyan here battling away really nicely and seeing how they can get around. He's got to sweep out. Don't forget that GT3 is going to wash out a little bit. You've got to get in front of him beforehand on that one, and Huyan did. Now this is the same situation we had earlier on with Suvik. He's got to try and stay with Tom Lane. The problem is if Lane makes an overtake, they're going to try and split that GT3. Nearly ended up in a collision down into Canada corner here. John Huyan and Tom Lane. Lane's going to try and dive the GT3 in front. He needs to get past him, and he knows Huyan's got to try and do the same thing. This is what Huyan's seeing at the moment. He's just seeing that purple rear end of Tom Lane, and he's trying to stay with him as best as he physically can. And I love Mr. Reese's conversation there in YouTube. He said we never know if it would have played out with George playing the Berlin Wall, and that was of course going with Suvik and Kirby. And Sasha Sobers in YouTube saying F in chat for him, of course, as he got well, we don't know, he ended up in a wall.
Yeah, he got hit pretty comprehensively, I think, is the answer there for him. Johnny Ian's still looking for this way through. I really thought on the way in towards Canada corner that they were going to both force the issue there, and there was going to be a free wide moment with at least someone on the grass, maybe multiple people. Johnny Ian has now finally made his way through though, and it seems that Tom Lane kind of let that one happen, making sure that the Peugeot was in front. Is that to get the Porsche back down the inside at turn 5? Well, not quite. Possibly a view to the final pit stop, as it's Huyan wide again for the third lap in a row. This time he's had a bit of a head start, and so holds on to third place on that occasion, but eventually he makes his way through, and maybe the Porsche starting to catch up with Tom Lane a little bit, because we noted at the start of the day that it's not the strongest car around here. Tom Lane was dragging it upwards through his driving ability, but maybe it's catching up with him now. Would that be a fair comment, Alec? I mean, we were speaking to Ross earlier, and he was saying the Porsche's pretty unfancied around here, but Tom Lane's a very good driver. It seems that the Porsche is starting to outweigh that equation a little bit.
Yes, no, with the Porsche, it's a very good car under braking and through mid to high speed corners, and we do have a lot of high speed corners here, but there is a lot of also low speed corners, as you can see here in Canada corner. The Porsche struggles to come off the corner as well as what some of the other cars do, and the Porsche struggles with straight line speed. As you saw, John down the straightaway was able to close that huge gap with the slipstream, and so he was really just being patient to find the pass. I respect John a lot for that, for waiting for the right moment to come, not forcing the issue, but having a big incident within the traffic of the GT. As you can see now, he's able to pull that gap down the straightaway. But Tom is doing great with the car he has. He's able to manage, stay in the fight, stay in the gap. It's a shame that he lost the spot to John, but John just overall had the pace. The Peugeot is really good with that because it is all-wheel drive. The Porsche is rear-wheel drive, so those little mistakes of going wide and sliding the car around, John is able to manage those very well. So as you see there through that corner, Tom actually is able to close that gap just a little bit. He's trying to get in the slipstream. If he can stay close to John and stay in that slipstream, John can pull him around the track, and as the tires wear out, maybe Tom can try and make another pass to get back up into third position.
Let's see if he can do it in the next couple of moments. Of course, we've got final pit stops coming here as well, Alec. I mean, Kirby is now nearly 20 seconds in the lead. I mean, we're going to need something quite miraculous to deny him of the victory at this point, aren't we?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Sorry, that's all right. I'm speaking about Daniel Kirby, who's in the lead by nearly 20 seconds. It's going to take quite something to stop him from winning from here.
Yes, no, Daniel has a commanding lead. It actually wouldn't surprise me here soon with him having to pit here in the next few laps if he does decide to take that new set of tires. He has the gap, he has that buffer, he could take that set of tires and pull even farther of a gap to everybody else. Daniel definitely has had a hand around the neck on this race. His car is just set up well. Him and John Yuan at CMS Pro Racing have definitely got these Peugeots figured out. They've had a lot of time in them, a lot of races. And it just looks like Daniel's able to gel with this car. He can put the car where he wanted. He can put the power down however hard he wants to. So he is just managing right now. I definitely expect him to win this race. He'll be able to coast through to that victory. As you see him coming through some lap traffic here, no one really has anything for Daniel right now at this time.
No, not for the moment. I think that was Wayne Hutchison, by the way, who's third in the Hypercar AM Championship. He's just overtaken there in one of the Porsches. We'll see what that championship standing will be doing after the day, but Kirby with a championship lead already in the Hypercars. Looks like he will extend that further again here as he decides against making that move down the inside of Chris Brown. Here is Matthew Marlowe here, James. Not sure how he's found himself here, but clearly has lost out a little bit in the pit stops. Maybe now down in 4th place from pole in the race, of course.
Yeah, I think we were under the same situation. What we were talking about earlier on is whether or not, obviously, one's taken tyres and one hasn't. You know, Marlowe and obviously Becky Ely, they both made a stop, but it's how they've panned it out. As Alex said, you know, it's whether or not they've got tyres on, whether or not they haven't, whether or not what the situation is. And unfortunately for Marlowe, he's kind of lost out a little bit. The only saving grace is obviously Chris Brown, and then he's got JT Tammy in front of him here as well. Takanashi's about 3.5 seconds down the road, and then Ely's on from there. So, you know, the GT3s is not done by any shape or the form, and Marlowe's going to want to try and get these positions back. We think that's going to be their only one stop. I don't think they're going to have to stop again. So for Matthew Marlowe, he's got to try and clear JT Tammy so he can get on his way to Takanashi. And you can see here he's having a good old go. Marlowe's pulled out to the right-hand side, going down into turn 1. Marlowe on the left, JT Tammy on the right. It's going to be job done. Marlowe's through and all done and dusted for him. So Marlowe's now got to get on his way to Takanashi here at Ewan and once more try and close that gap back up.
Yes, it's quite a gap though. Nearly quarter of a minute, I think, is the gap to the leader. Anyway, Becky Ely, who's still ahead of Takanashi, did make a great start, did Takanashi actually, but has grown into the race over the last 3/4 of an hour. Now second, looking for that win today. Of course, we were speaking earlier about the openness of the GT3 Championship. Not many of those up there in the championship are actually up there in today's race. Jamie Zalecki is nowhere to be seen in terms of the leaders. 25th overall, I suppose just outside the top 5. In 6th place is all right. Becky Ely obviously leading at the moment. JT Tammy is currently, was just on the podium until Marlowe just overtook. Brandon Gant is quite a long way back from what I can see. He is 8th, I think, in the standings. As things stand in the Nissan, maybe that's not suiting him particularly. And Vasilis Katrinakis, I can't see in the order at all.
No,
he's
not here.
So that's going to be a bit of a change for him. But I think at the end of the day, Zalecki may well just hold on to the championship lead with another 8 points added to his name. But Ely will certainly have gained. Tammy will have gotten a little bit closer, and Brandon Gamp will have slipped away a little bit, but I think we'll be in a pretty similar situation by the end of today's race compared to the start.
Suvic trying to go round there. Yeah, just don't do that. Like, you know, patience is a virtue. You've got a straight coming up. Now do it. No need to rush it through 13. You know, could just end up disastrous, and he's in the pits anyway. So there was no need for him to even remotely put that car beside the likes of Chris Brown and JT Tammy. He could have just sat there. I don't get it. I really don't. Maybe I just don't drive enough to have this driver's attitude where you think every second counts. Well, yeah, I get it. It does. But, you know, you can't be making silly things. Tom Lane's in as well. Magnus Dahlgren's come in. So I think that the majority of the hypercars should be starting to move here as well, Ewan. But, you know, the likes of Chris Brown and JT Tammy there, especially for Chris, having Suvic try and go up round 13 and then go into the pits. Even I would be sitting there going, what? Why did you? Why? Just patience. Patience is a little bit of virtue.
I think it's a different equation, isn't it, when we're speaking about this from our perspective and setting up here versus being in the race where you can lose your head pretty often.
Well, Alex here. Alex, what would you say about that? Would you wait? You know you're going in the pits, or would you try and get through on 13 and put you and the driver in the grass?
No one's intention is ever to do that, but knowing from being in that position of in a hypercar trying to pass a GT3 car, I will be completely honest, we have no respect for anyone in a lower class. So you try to make the pass any way you can, anywhere you can, and us sitting in the booth, you know, we can say, oh, that may have been not the greatest decision, and well, all of us basically when we get in the car think we're Ayrton Senna and go, oh no, there's a gap, I can make it. So, you know, Yes and no. What should he have waited? Yes, he did, and yes, he should have, and he did. You know, we saw he didn't try to force the issue too much there, because the last thing you want to do is force that issue and have an incident. You really have to know who you're racing and who's in that car and what car that is to make the pass. Some guys who come in and only run a few races, you know, you don't know where exactly they're going to go or what they're. Oh!
Whoa.
Is that Matt Boost there
Matt
in the
Boost.
Lamborghini?
Yeah, I think that was Boost. I just see him now. We'll have a look and see. But I think there was a car off in front of him here. So does he just come around the corner? Oh, he hits the
he's on his
grass.
Nope, he caught the grass.
Oh,
Oh,
Marlowe would just avoid Matthew Marlowe. And then,
great driving by Matthew there.
well, I think he avoided the crash, of course, but oh no, he held on to the place as well. Fair play. Yeah, thought he would have definitely lost a place to JT Timey once again, but held on to the place as well, even despite having to avoid the incident. Let's hope he can do the same on the way towards turn 5, and he should have enough to stay in front here in the Porsche, and will do. We'll stay on the podium for now, but yeah, that was an awkward moment, and unfortunately not a good day for Matt Buse really so far today. It's been difficult, and that's not the first incident unfortunately we've seen.
no, it definitely isn't. He's been off a few times. You know, we're not going to obviously focus on the Matt Boost show with him spinning here as well. So unfortunately we'll just keep Matt, as he's had a bit of a rough one. Jerry Chen has just taken a little bit of a diver off the side of the circuit. As you can see him still finishing off the grass cutting that he's just been employed to do by the circuit managers here at Road Atlanta. So Jerry Chen cutting the grass there as well. Michael Locker's also been off the side of the circuit, leading the Hypercar AM still, so fair play to him with Wayne Hutchinson. He has got the likes of Gilles Lalonde closing up behind him. Kirby's out in front by 27 seconds. He could probably just go in and sit down and have a cup of tea, and he'd still probably take the win. Chris Brown and JT Tammy find out. Marlowe's got a little bit up the field here as well, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, that is your Hypercar leader. So this is just about to get a little bit more interesting here, Ewan, with all of these drivers in the same bit of track.
It is. Oh, that was quite a dive from one of the Porsches just up in front of Kirby there. I think it's Wayne Hutchison in the sort of gold looking Porsche. Just making that dive. Daniel Kirby about to put him a lap down for the first time, which means I did get it wrong earlier when I called it was him in front of Kirby. It clearly wasn't. He's about to go a lap down, and that would leave us with 8 cars on the lead lap at the end of an hour. It says a lot about the pace that Daniel Kirby has had at the front of this field, and the way that he's just ripped everybody else apart. Out of turn 3 he goes now, and he'll make his way through on Hutchison, who's now second in the Hypercar AM standings. First, of course, leader of the championship in that category, to Philippe Henrique, who's only 17 points back, but going to be losing points today, you would imagine. Bank as well. So all in all, it's been a good day for Hutchison because most of his rivals are behind him.
Well, one of them's out. Felipe Henrique is out. He has disappeared into the upside down, and unfortunately for Henrique there, he has gone. So for Hutchinson at the moment, with Gwilym Bank all the way down in 18th overall, which of course is 6th in class here for Gwilym Bank. Hutchinson should get a nice little bit of a boost, but he has got Port-Yusif in the pits, Bank, so maybe he has just cleared Port-Yusif at the moment, so Bank goes up into 5th overall, which isn't a bad run, but he is still behind Hutchinson there as well. Chris Brown still trying to get hold of JT Tammy up the road there as well. This is probably one of the closest battles, apart from Eugene Mazur having a very interesting battle with that very Bambi on ice Lamborghini of Mike Buse. So yeah, I think the Buses is having a little bit of an issue on this track at the moment, as there is, I think that's George Angelides having to come through on the GT3. So overall, it's been an interesting race with 6.5 minutes remaining, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's probably been more interesting for some than it has for others, I feel here, Ewan.
Yeah, it has. Hutchison, by the way, is going to see his championship lead rise to over 30 points by the end of the day, so it's all positive for him as Eugene Mazur makes his way through on another one of the Lamborghinis, or does he? Let's it's quite concentrated and complicated for all of the GT3s here. And now up into 8th place goes Missouri. They will be dived by another one of the Lamborghinis. Oh, and
it's
the contact.
round.
Championship leader goes around it. Oh, and there's a real pile-up now. This is quite comical in some ways.
And
Three cars getting involved in that. Usually Missouri the first to be tipped around. This was the moment. It was Mike Buse who got caught up in it, and Matt Buse who did the spinning around.
Yeah, Mike and Matt Buse there. Not an ideal scenario, but I wonder if that was Missouri spinning on his own here. I wonder if we just have a quick look.
Oh dear, Mike's off again. There at the final corner. I've got to say, I do think Missouri was hit there pretty hard to the right rear. Let's have another look at it here in George Canada corner. He's skating on the brakes as well, and that for me is definite contact. The way that car was going around at the particular point. There we go. Certain contact, and then the way that both of them end up behind the same Ferrari at the same corner there was somewhat amusing.
Yeah, it was a bit,
but not for them.
Bizarre,
of course,
yeah.
they now drop down. But all of them involved in the AM Championship fight, which makes it even weirder, the fact that that was a battle for 8th place.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's certain things that I sit back and I have to look at about 6 or 7 times and figure out what went on. And to be honest, Missouri was already round the outside. Boost would have had the call from a spotter if he has got one, or some form of fancy program, crew chief and whatever else, to say there was a car there. I don't get that. You've got to make sure that you've got to try and do it. Yeah, there was a hypercar trying to come through as well, which I really did not figure out as we watched.
Oh no, Monnier! Sorry, Monnier out the final corner goes into the wall. Thought that was going to be a bigger crash than it was in the end, but he ends up getting away with just scraping along the tyre wall.
Yeah, I don't see how that was possible, to be honest, because if I did that in iRacing, I would have lost half of my front wing and half of my back wing and everything else. So, our factor's built different, I guess.
He has bent the steering arm though. He's right hand down there with the suspension, so he's not gotten away with it totally there. JT Timey still holding on from Chris Brown, by the way, in the Aston Martin. Chris Brown in the Porsche just behind. There it is, the fight for 4th place in GT3, and I think the fight for the win might be on as well between Becky Healy and Yuki Takanashi as well. Is that gap coming down again? I think it could be.
That'd be why.
There they are. Well, less than 4 minutes to go. There's probably a couple of laps left in this race, or depending on where Daniel Kirby is, of course. He's just making his way through the kink to start his penultimate lap. So there'll be 2.5 laps to go for these GT3 leaders here, James, and a battle for the win right to the end.
Yeah, I think they're still going at it here as well. The GT3s is going to be an interesting one between Ely and Takanashi and Suvik. Oh, get past. Suvik there not trying to get involved with that battle, but from Becky Healy's point, clearly there's something going on in that Acura, and you can see them both trying to run that wide line, and that was very, very wide onto the grass. Ely's hanging on like a cliffhanger on the side of a mountain here. She's got 2 fingers on the trophy, but can she get that 3rd finger on as well? Only time will tell, and at the moment here, Takanashi's putting her under pressure.
Well, it's going to feel like the longest 2 laps of Road America that Becky Healy has ever driven here, because Yuki Takanashi is only getting stronger as this race is going on. Didn't start so well, dropped off the podium initially, but slowly has worked his way through the order, has been catching Healy at the front, who's looking for another race win in one of these hour-long races she's been so consistent at over the course of this season. But Takanashi's looking to take that off her at the moment. Outside line in towards turn 1 now on the penultimate lap here at Road America. It's not going to happen this time. There will be a cutback to the inside from the McLaren, quite possibly, for a look down the hill at turn 3. Is it going to be now? Not quite. There'll be another defence from Ely. It's late on the brakes. Will Takanashi get the better run out of here for a run at turn 5? I think he could be possibly too far back on this occasion. He'll have one more lap after this one, of course, to try and make this work.
Yeah, Takanashi did something that I've probably never seen from any other GT3 there. He allowed that GT3 through. I think that's Tom Lane, and he allowed Tom Lane through before going back at Ely, and that's cost him, and that's one thing that we say, and one thing you should never do there as well. You've got to battle for yourself, and from Takanashi, it was all down to the faster car. He did move out the way, and fair play. I respect you for it, and you're in my graces. I'll send you a Christmas card. Maybe, you might get a present as well for doing it, but that's cost him with Ely, and that could have cost him the win. And that's going to be a big thing for Takanashi to try and swallow here, because I tell you what, I wouldn't have done that. I would have made that faster car go through, and at the moment he didn't, and now that could have cost him there, Ewan.
Well, there'll be a minute left and one more lap as well. Daniel Kirby has started his final lap just about now. He's making his way down towards, he's just making his way out of turn number 1. Now that's John Ewan making his way through from 4th place, just interrupting this fight ever so slightly. There'll be more hypercars upon them as well, of course. I can count at least a couple more, maybe a few more, that may well overtake them before the end of this race. There's another look at the final corner from Takanashi. Is that going to be the case when we get round to the end of the final lap? Is it going to be side by side across the line? One of the hypercars goes flying off in the background. At least that's not one to contend with now between these two. Takanashi tucked up behind the Acura as they go over the line. It would be a photo finish, but it would go to Becky Ely. Yuki Takanashi knows that he can't quite leave it to the very end of this race. He'll go to the outside in towards turn 1. He'll rip round there, and he will get the lead of the race with seconds remaining in the 60 minutes of Road America. We've got a change for the lead in GT3, and Yuki Takanashi has completed his run to the front of the field.
Yeah, he's taking the lead in the GT3s. Dan Kirby here as well is going to lead the pros in the hypercar. He's doing an absolutely stellar job. He's going to be coming over the line very, very shortly. He's going to go around Canada corner now. Takanashi and Ely. Ely's had another go at him. There was a whoa. Ely there as well, Ewan. It's getting exciting.
Yes, he's got through again on Yuki Takanashi, and the hypercars know what's at stake here. Try not to get involved too much. As up front, Daniel Kirby makes his way around the final corner. He'll lap a few more of the GT3s before the end as well. But never in doubt, Daniel Kirby, championship leader, wins at Road America as well by nearly 30 seconds in the end. It's another Peugeot victory here in hypercar. As out over the line as well comes Micah Locke, the first hypercar 1 lap down to win in Hypercar Am. What about GT3 pros? As we see Becky Ely with a last lap pass. She was overtaken in towards turn 1. She's done the overtaking in towards turn 5 and possibly is on her way to a victory here at Road America. But it won't quite be over just yet. Takanashi closes in with a better run through the kink. The McLaren will look to the outside on the way towards Canada corner. It's not going to happen there. He'll close right up into the rear end of this Acura now, as one of the Lamborghinis is dispatched off on the right hand side. Here goes Takanashi over the curbs, giving it everything. Ely knows that this has been a favourite moment today for Takanashi. She's got a bit deep into the final corner, and the McLaren's going to have the run off. Oh, there's going to be a squeeze towards the pit lane. There's going to be a squeeze towards the grass. They're going to be side by side towards the line. Takanashi might just get there. It's so close.
Oh my.
He just takes it ahead of Yuki Takanashi, who was closed up onto the grass. He flashes the lights. I don't think he's particularly pleased, but it's a absolute photo finish between the two leaders in GT3.
Wow, that is how you end a motor race.
Oh, Ely there, wow. That was incredible ending, and I think we just about might have been able to catch a moment there where Ely managed to hold it on, but boy oh boy, did she do it the hard way there, Ewan. I'm trying to get on. There's more things happening here as well, and it's not staying where you want to stay. Please stay as well for Becky Ely, but boy oh boy, that run down to the line was incredibly close there as well, and that was just absolutely incredible from them guys fighting out. I'm gonna have to give it a minute because everything's flicking around here, Ewan, but boy oh boy, was that impressive.
It was a really great end to the race, and as you say, Alec, a really great way to finish a great battle. Takanashi was getting quicker towards the end. You could see that maybe given 5 more minutes he would have made it through, but that run to the line was fantastic, and what a battle between the both of them.
Yeah, that was incredible. If you want to have a battle like that, that is how you end that battle. I'm really interested to see what happened though, of how Becky was able to get back around Takanashi down into that downhill section. But great racing from the both of them. Becky definitely has had to squeeze him a little bit. She had to get her arms out and fight for that win. But man, what a battle! I really thought going in through that final corner, Takanashi was gonna be able to get the drive, and it was gonna be a photo finish at the line. With him just ever so slightly easing her out. As we watch a replay again here, oh my God, how close is that? You don't see that very often in sports car racing, maybe in NASCAR, but not so much here. Man, that was incredible. What a great drive from both of them. They both had a great race, and super pumped for Becky to finally get her win. On Thursday, she was a little concerned about today that she wasn't going to have the pace, but she sure as hell did.
Absolutely, and takes the win in the end. That's no 2 in a row for her, by the way. 60 Minutes of Monza was a victory for her. Still was second at Mosport, so 3 podiums in a row and 2 wins now for Becky Ely. Just still searching for that pole position, which has still not come. Here is the race result then after 32 laps. Daniel Kirby taking the win ahead of Timon Subic and Tom Lane on the podium. John Uyen finishing fourth ahead of Magnus Dahlgren, Brian Horn, Jules Lalonde, the rest of the Hypercars. Then Hypercar Am with Michael Locke, Wayne Hutchison and Anton Stalker rounding out the top 10. That was your top 3 in Hypercar Am. Following on from that, in 11th position, was Diego Rodriguez in the overall standings. Then Eric Munoz in 12th. Ross Smith recovers to 13th after early problems for him to finish just ahead of George Angelidis, by the way. Jerry Chen finishes 15th ahead of Norm Graf, then Guillaume Benjamin Portis-Heath to round out the Hypercars who finished up there at least strongly. Becky Ely, of course, the winner in GT3, as we saw by absolutely no margin at all, pretty much, ahead of Yuka Takinashi by the end. And unfortunately, my timing screen has now got rid of the results, so I can't tell you about the rest of it. But that they were all there at the end. So I'll try and bring you the rest of the top 5s at least. Matthew Marlowe was third in GT3 ahead of Chris Brown. JT Tarmy dropped to 5th at the end of GT3, by the way. Not sure how late on that happened. I think that could have been on the last lap as well, actually, when Brown got through. And in GT3 AM, it was Monrose who took the win ahead of Meyer, Carlin, Miller and Lipetri. The top 5 in GT3 AM by the end. Apologies for the timing screen disappearing just at the end there, but hopefully we got those race results to you just as well at the end of that one. Let's take a quick chat now with a few of the drivers after that one, shall we? Starting with Daniel Kirby. I think it's logical, having won the race tonight, he can now join us. Daniel, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Victory for you by nearly half a minute today, but Timon Subic attempted to make it interesting by doing something a little bit different on strategy. Was that something that you ever considered yourself, doing something a little bit different like that? Was that always a strategy you were going to go for? And were you always very confident that all the others would fall by the wayside and you would take the win tonight?
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting strategy. I don't think he took tires the whole race. But yeah, I knew even if I took tires that first stint that I could catch him up and pass him pretty easy because the Acura is pretty hard on its tires, so I knew like his pace was gonna fall off pretty bad.
And one of our biggest keys to the race, of course, was traffic. That probably doesn't surprise you. How was it generally out there today? Because it was an absolutely huge grid. How was negotiating the GT3s generally?
A little better than I thought it would be this race. Yeah, there's a lot of cars, so I was assuming it was going to be pretty difficult, but it actually went pretty smoothly overall, I think.
And well, at least it is for you personally, certainly. I mean, judging forward now or going forward, you're still championship leader, of course. You've extended that lead now. How are you feeling about Fuji next time out with still 4 rounds to go in this championship?
That one's going to be interesting because of like the track basically needs like two different kinds of cars. You need really fast straight line speed, and you need like downforce for the sweeping corners. So with this Peugeot car, you kind of have to compromise one of them. If you take all the wing off, then it's really fast for the straight, but it'll suck through the corners. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I think it's going to be pretty difficult in this car.
Let's see how it goes, of course. But congratulations on your Road America win here tonight, Daniel. And thanks so much for coming to chat to us after the race as well.
Yeah, thank you guys for the podcast.
Thanks very much, Daniel Kirby there, winner of the 60 Minutes of Road America here in the Hypercar class. And in Hypercar AM, it was Michael Lock who ended up taking the victory. And he can join us now as well. Here we are. Michael, welcome in. Good to have you with us. First of all, can you hear us? And can we hear you, just to make sure?
Yeah, I hear you guys.
Excellent. I was just worried there because you had your mic muted for a while and I didn't know if you were there or not at all. Welcome in. Good victory for you tonight here in Hypercar, AM, winning by a few seconds at the end of that one. I mean, how was the race generally? How did you find the 60 minutes here at Road America? Your winning margin in the end was, a decent one over Hutchinson, and you did hold that lead for a long time.
Yeah, I think it went well. I mean, really, it was just trying to stay out of trouble was really the main thing, and knew I would have, somewhat of a chance if that happened. I think I qualified third or something, so really just wanted to keep it as clean as possible was really the strategy. So I think it worked out well.
I think so as well. I mean, we've spoken about the traffic a little bit earlier on and asked other people about that, but I want to ask you a little bit about the interaction with the GT3s. You mentioned particularly at this circuit that they are better on the brakes at certain points in the corner than the Hypercars due to a number of reasons. Was that something you found particularly difficult in terms of the braking zones this week and trying to lap those GT3s? Was that something you particularly noticed?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I thought all the GT3s did solid. And yeah, I didn't really have any troubles. I thought all the GT3s drove really well and predictable for the most part.
And how was the strategy in working that out over the course of the preparation for this race? Was it a difficult decision in terms of what you were going to do, or pretty obvious to you?
I knew it was going to be a two-stopper, so I kind of worked that out. But yeah, I mean, I definitely, as far as setup work goes for the next race, I need a lot of work because I was getting killed on the straights by the pros, so still needs a lot of work. But yeah, I think it worked out.
Well, yeah. How are you going to compromise that at the next round at Fuji? Because that's a very mixed of circuit with straights and corners.
Yeah, that one's tough. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. And yeah, just make sure I'm not spinning out too, something that's safe enough, which I think is, like I said, for me, important, just to stay on the track and keep it moving.
Absolutely, it's a good way of making up places, as it turns out. Mikey, congratulations on the win tonight, and thanks very much for coming to chat to us as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael Lock there, winning in Hypercar AM here this evening. And now that we can go down to the GT3s. First of all, to the winner, Becky Ely, who now joins us as well. Becky, welcome in. Good to have you with us. I've got to start with the end of the race because it was a wonderful battle between you and Yuki Takanashi at the end. Just tell us about those last couple of laps as you were really being hounded there, and especially the last lap where you did actually exchange positions a couple of times as well.
It was absolutely insane. I was terrified because I could see from the lap times. I was watching the gap go down and down. I was watching my lap time. I was watching Yuki's lap time. Yuki's lap time, with a few laps to go, was faster than my fastest lap of the race. And I was like, how the hell am I going to hold this guy off? I'm not going to be able to. I knew the NSX doesn't have tyres. It can qualify well here, but it does not have race pace at all. And I think that really showed. I think I must have just been really lucky with the traffic. And then I was really lucky that Yuki was very tentative into turn, is it 3 or 4? I don't know which one it counts as, but the end of the long straight. he was very tentative and kind of almost let me outbrake him around the outside. And then I defended like an absolute madwoman. And I personally think I was a little over the edge with my defending, but it was for the win. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. If it was for second, I wouldn't have defended quite so hard, and he definitely would have had me. But yeah, just such a good race, and like such fair racing from Yuki. I honestly think he deserved it more than me today. And yeah, so just thank you for that amazing race.
It was a great battle to watch between the two of you. Hard racing, but fair racing, as you say, as well. Season's going pretty well for you now. You've had a couple of good results strung together. 3 podiums in a row now, as well in these hour-long races, which you seem to have taken on well at this point. How are you feeling about the sort of rest of this championship, the final 4 rounds? Because you have made ground in the championship today. I'm not sure how many positions you will have gained, if any at all, actually, but you have certainly closed on the championship lead in terms of points. Now, how are you feeling about those final 4 rounds and what you might be able to achieve by the end of the season?
It's such a crazy championship. I really think as long as I stay in it and I have a mathematical chance in the final race, I'm going to be happy anyway. There's such great people in this championship, such amazing racers, such nice guys, that whoever wins it will deserve it. And I hope that will be me. And today kind of puts me in there. I think I could have lost it completely today, being as far behind as I was. But I definitely have the outside chance at it. So we just have to see. There's so many points on offer, and there's two longer races with lots of points. So it's anyone's. I think there's about 7 people that could actually win the championship, because there's a few super fast guys like a little bit behind. I think 6th and 7th. Sachin's won. He had a DNF today, but I wouldn't count him out from winning the last 4 races in a row because he's that fast. Same with Johnny Gutierrez. If he comes back, he could win the last 4 in a row and take the championship. So it's anyone out of 7 people could take it, and it's going to be fantastic.
It is, yeah, it was another great chapter in the story, I suppose, today with your win. Congratulations, Becky, on that victory, and we look forward to seeing you next time out at Fuji.
Thank you very much. Can I just do a massive shout out to John Mayer? We both worked very hard on the setup together, and without him, I would not have been able to achieve this at all today. So it really is thanks to him. Like, massive thank you, John. And to James and all of you, as usual, for putting on such a great show.
Oh, thanks very much. but yeah, as I say, congratulations, Becky, on the win, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Becky Ely there, winner in GT3. Here tonight in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship, 60 minutes of Road America. Let's get final thoughts from Alec King, first of all, before we leave this evening, because it's been a great race overall. Alec, a great hour of racing. The Hypercars, of course, providing the entertainment that they did, but that GT3 battle towards the end is what's going to make the headlines, I suppose, and what's going to really live long in the memory for us watching, and hopefully everybody at home watching as well. It was a really great way to end what was a good race.
Yes, that battle at the last lap between Becky and Yuta Tsunoda was with Takanashi was awesome. That was unbelievable. That is definitely how you want to end a race. This race overall today was really interesting. We had a lot of different strategies play out, as we heard Kirby say that Suvik didn't take tires the whole race, so that's definitely why he was struggling at the end. And it was just incredible. Definitely one of the best races we've had so far this season, with all the battles, with how the strategy played out with the traffic. Definitely was a great one. So was super cool to come in the booth and commentate with you guys today. And I'm sure everybody watching the stream enjoyed it as well. And thank you guys for letting me come in here. And yeah, man, that was awesome. So I'm glad we were all able to watch and scream our heads off about that amazing finish.
We certainly were. No, thanks very much for coming to join us, Alec, in the booth. It's been great to have your insight instead of just me and James sort of trying to work out what the hell's going on. Sometimes it's good to have someone with actual knowledge on what's going. So thanks very much for your input over the course of the broadcast. And final thoughts from you, James, as well, from our side of things. We always love exciting finishes like that, but I mean, we'll do well to get a closer finish than that by the end of this season.
Yeah, that was just incredible. Do you know what I mean? It was an incredible end in that GT3 battle. The others were already wrapped up. Kirby was leading for ages. Mika Locke was leading as well. But to come down to literally, the front splitter of the GT3 was incredible. And, Becky said it was a little bit, was it over the top? Well, I don't know. You squeezed him against the grass. I'm sure Takanashi probably isn't going to be happy about it. But that's what the racing is, and at the end of the day, she says it was for the win. It wasn't for second or third, it was for the win. So fair play. They go racing. I don't know if the stewards are going to come out and look at it. Who knows? Depends what Takanashi goes about his thing. But overall, it was incredible. And to be honest, Alec did well, didn't he, considering he was only going to be in for the beginning of the race here, Ewan?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's been a great broadcast overall. We've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you have at home as well. Thanks so much to everybody who's been tuned in this evening. It's been great to have you along, great to chat with you in the YouTube chat and whatever it is. Make sure you subscribe to the JPB YouTube channel for more racing coming up over the coming weeks. There's so much racing, especially on weekdays, weeknights, but also throughout the weekends as well, including all of the rounds of the Virtual World Sports Car Championship from the modern day championship and the historics as well, using cars from the late 90s in that season. It's been great to cover that one as well on JPB. So all of those races live, of course, and in full from us here at JPB, and all the other stuff as well. Make sure you subscribe and take a look around. But for now, we'll be bidding our farewells. One of the closest to one of the best battles we've seen towards the end of one of these races, ending up at the front of the field. Another Daniel Kirby victory. He extends his championship lead at the front of the Hypercars as in GT3. Another chapter to the story gets told, and it just gets that little bit closer once more. Make sure you join us again at Fuji for the next twist in the tale. That's coming up in just 2 weeks' time for the fourth last round of the season, the 60 Minutes of Fuji. Here, the first time. The fourth last round of the season. There it is, Road America tonight, but still 4 more to go and plenty more racing coming up before the end of our season. Time for us to bid our farewells, though. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside James Parfitt with the guest appearance from Alec King here this evening in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship commentary booth. From all of us here at the 60 Minutes of Road America, to all of you at home who've enjoyed this the broadcast tonight, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye for now.